Itachi Uchiha's vision blurred as he staggered backward. His final battle with Sasuke had taken everything from him. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and his body screamed in agony. The sky was dark, thunderous clouds swirling ominously above the two brothers. Sasuke, panting heavily, stood opposite Itachi, his sharingan blazing with determination and rage. The air crackled with the residual energy of their jutsus, the ground around them scorched and torn apart. "Is this really what you wanted, Itachi?" Sasuke shouted, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. Itachi, breathing heavily, managed a faint smile. "Sasuke, you've become strong. This is—" With the last of his strength, Itachi walked towards his brother. Sasuke flinched, readying himself for another attack, but Itachi merely extended a trembling hand. He reached out and tapped Sasuke's forehead gently, just as he had done when they were children. "Forgive me, Sasuke. This is the end," Itachi whispered, his voice barely audible. As his sight dimmed, Itachi collapsed, the world around him fading to black. He believed he had met his end, but his journey was far from over. Sasuke knelt beside his fallen brother, his expression a mixture of grief and confusion. The weight of their shared history bore down on him as he looked upon Itachi's still form. The echoes of their clashes, their conversations, and the unspoken truths reverberated in his mind. "You were always protecting me," Sasuke muttered, his voice choked with emotion. "Why, Itachi? Why did it have to end like this?" But there were no answers now, only the solemn silence of the battlefield. The storm above them began to dissipate, leaving behind a somber calmness that contrasted sharply with the violence that had just transpired. The black void. Drifting in the void, Itachi felt weightless, his consciousness floating in a sea of darkness. Time seemed to stretch into eternity, and he pondered his fate. Was this death? Was he destined to wander this black void forever? Just as despair began to grip his heart, a piercing light broke through the darkness. Itachi squinted, shielding his eyes from the sudden brightness. Gradually, the light grew, enveloping him completely. He felt a strange sensation of falling before he was suddenly submerged in cold water. He gasped, flailing as he fought to reach the surface. The new world. Breaking through, he found himself lying on a sandy shore, the gentle waves lapping at his feet. He blinked, disoriented, and slowly sat up. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had expected to be in hell, paying for his sins, but instead, he was here, wherever here was. The sky above was a brilliant blue, with fluffy white clouds drifting lazily. The scent of salt water filled the air, mingling with the sweet aroma of nearby tropical flowers. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, their fronds rustling softly. Itachi looked down at his reflection in the clear, azure water. His face, once gaunt and sickly from his illness, now appeared healthy and revitalized. His sharingan activated out of habit, and to his astonishment, his mangyeko sharingan was still intact. Even more shocking was the absence of the debilitating disease that had plagued him for so long. Feeling a strange sense of rebirth, Itachi decided to gather information about his surroundings. He needed to understand where he was if he was to start anew. As he walked towards a nearby city, he noticed something peculiar. People were riding on seahorses, a sight he had never seen before. Gathering information. Curious, he approached a local fisherman, an older man with weathered skin and a straw hat. The man was busy unloading fish from his small boat. "Excuse me," Itachi began, his voice calm and measured. "Can you tell me where I am?" The fisherman looked up, eyes widening slightly at Itachi's unusual attire. "You're in Water 7, young man. Famous for its shipbuilding." "Water 7?" Itachi repeated, the name unfamiliar to him. "And these? Seahorses?" The fisherman chuckled. "Aye, seahorses are a common sight here. Faster and more reliable than regular horses on land." Itachi furrowed his brow. "I've never heard of this place. What can you tell me about its significance?" The fisherman paused, studying Itachi's face. "You must be a long way from home. Water 7 is known for building the finest ships in the world. It's where the legendary shipwrights work, and it said that Gold Roger's ship was built here. Itachi's confusion deepened. Gold Roger? The fisherman nodded. Aye, the Pirate King. He found the greatest treasure, the One Piece. You really must be from far away if you don't know about him. I see, Itachi said, processing the information. Thank you for your help. The fisherman nodded, his curiosity about Itachi evident but unspoken. You're welcome, young man. If you need anything, feel free to ask. Name's Jiro, by the way. Thank you, Jiro. Itachi replied with a slight bow. I am Itachi Uchiha. Leaving the fisherman, Itachi made his way to the area known for shipwrecks. There, he found a building labeled Galley Law Company. Outside stood a man with a prominent nose and a well-built frame, dressed in a dark blue suit with a white shirt underneath. His hair was neatly combed, and he had a confident air about him. The locals had mentioned a man named Iceberg, the head of shipbuilding here. Meeting Iceberg, Itachi approached him, introducing himself. Excuse me, are you Iceberg? The man looked up from his work and nodded. Yes, I am. How can I help you? My name is Itachi Uchiha. I seem to have found myself in a place I am unfamiliar with and was hoping to gather some information, Itachi explained. Iceberg's assistant, a woman with bright pink hair tied up in a ponytail and wearing a white blouse with a green skirt, watched him curiously. You're not from around here, are you? She asked. Itachi shook his head. No, I'm not. I come from a different land. Iceberg studied Itachi for a moment before nodding. Come inside. We can talk more comfortably there. They entered Iceberg's office, a spacious room filled with blueprints, models of ships, and various nautical instruments. Iceberg gestured for Itachi to sit, then poured them both a cup of tea. Itachi, you said you're not from here. What exactly do you want to know? Iceberg asked, taking a sip of his tea. Itachi hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I want to know about this world. Its people, its history, its power structures. Iceberg raised an eyebrow. That's quite a broad request, but I'll do my best to explain. We are currently in Water 7, one of the premier shipbuilding locations in the world. This world is divided into various seas, each with its own unique characteristics and challenges. The most significant powers are the world government and the pirates. Pirates? Itachi echoed, intrigued. Yes, pirates play a major role in this world. They seek freedom, adventure, and often treasure. The most famous pirate was Gold Roger, the king of the pirates. He discovered the greatest treasure, known as the One Piece, Iceberg explained. Itachi absorbed the information, nodding slowly. And the world government? They are the ruling authority, enforcing laws and maintaining order. They have their own powerful forces, including the Marines. It's a complex world, filled with conflict and alliances, Iceberg continued. As the hours passed, the two men found common ground and formed a tentative friendship. Itachi didn't reveal his true origins, but Iceberg could sense there was something unusual about him. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Stepping out, they saw a boy with a straw hat, a girl with orange hair, and a long-nosed man causing a ruckus. The boy was shouting excitedly about something, drawing the attention of the entire dock. A lively encounter. The boy with the straw hat wore a red vest and blue shorts, his messy black hair sticking out from underneath his signature hat. He had a wide grin on his face and an infectious energy about him. The girl had bright orange hair and wore a white and blue striped shirt with a short denim skirt. She looked exasperated but amused. The long-nosed man wore a green tunic and had a distinctive green bandana tied around his head. Who are they? Itachi asked, intrigued by the lively trio. Iceberg frowned slightly. I'm not sure. They look like pirates, but I don't recognize them. As they watched, the boy with the straw hat continued to shout, Iceberg, we need our ship repaired. Iceberg's eyes narrowed. That's Monkey D. Luffy. He's been making waves recently. He's the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy waved his arms energetically. Iceberg, please fix the Going Merry. We can't sail without her. The girl with the orange hair stepped forward, her eyes pleading. Please, Mr. Iceberg. The Going Merry means everything to us. Itachi's interest was piqued. A new world, new faces, and new challenges. Perhaps this was his chance to start over, to find a new purpose. Iceberg sighed, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. All right, bring her over and we'll take a look. Luffy's face lit up with a beaming smile. Thank you so much, Iceberg. You're the best. As the Straw Hat Pirates moved to bring their ship to the dock, Itachi watched them with a sense of curiosity and admiration. This world was vastly different from his own, but he could sense the same underlying currents of hope, struggle, and determination. Joining the crew, Itachi stood by the dock, watching as the Galley Law Company workers inspected the Going Merry. Luffy, his new captain, bounded over with a wide grin. Itachi, welcome to the crew, Luffy exclaimed, slapping Itachi on the back. Itachi smiled warmly. Thank you, Luffy. I'm honored to be here. Luffy turned to his crewmates, who had gathered nearby. Hey guys, this is Itachi. He's joining our crew. The crew cheered, welcoming Itachi with open arms. Usopp, with his characteristic enthusiasm, clapped Itachi on the shoulder. Glad to have you aboard. You look like you can handle yourself. Nami, the navigator, approached with a calculating gaze. Welcome, Itachi. I hope you're ready for some exciting adventures. Itachi nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie he hadn't felt in a long time. I'm looking forward to it. Luffy pointed towards a corner where a man with green hair and a bandana lay napping against a wall, his swords resting beside him. That's Zoro, Luffy said with a grin. He's our swordsman. He's probably taking a nap before we set sail again. Itachi studied Zoro curiously. The swordsman looked formidable even in repose, with a muscular build and an air of quiet strength. His swords gleamed in the fading light, a testament to his skill and dedication. Luffy nudged Zoro with his foot. Hey Zoro, wake up. We have a new crewmate. Zoro stirred awake, blinking sleepily before focusing on Itachi and Luffy. His gaze was sharp, assessing the newcomer with a hint of curiosity. I'm Roronoa Zoro, he said in a gruff voice, his tone neutral but attentive. Itachi Uchiha. Itachi replied calmly, extending a hand in greeting. Zoro nodded, clasping Itachi's hand firmly. Welcome to the crew. Make sure you pull your weight. Itachi smiled faintly. I intend to. Luffy looked around eagerly. I want to introduce you to everyone, but Robin, Sanji, and Chopper aren't here right now. They want to pick up some supplies from the market. Itachi nodded understandingly. That's all right. I'm sure I'll meet them soon enough. As the sun began to set over Water 7, Itachi stood with the Straw Hat Pirates, feeling a new sense of purpose and belonging. He knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together, and he couldn't wait to see where their adventures would take them. The news hit the crew hard. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Itachi stood on the deck of the Going Merry, looking at the ship with heavy hearts. The shipwrights had confirmed their worst fears. The Merry was beyond repair. We can't sail on Merry anymore, Luffy said, his voice heavy with regret. His usually bright and energetic demeanor was dampened, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Nami nodded, her expression serious. We need a new ship, Luffy. It's the only way we can continue our journey safely. Usopp clenched his fists, his eyes filled with determination and defiance. No, I can fix her. I don't care what anyone says. I won't give up on Merry. His voice cracked with emotion, and his eyes were wide and desperate. Itachi watched silently, observing the reactions of his new crewmates. He noted Zoro's stoic expression, masking his inner turmoil. Zoro stood with his arms crossed, his jaw tight, as if holding back his own sadness. Nami's practical, albeit saddened, approach contrasted sharply with Usopp's emotional outburst. Luffy, though visibly conflicted, made up his mind. We have to build a new ship, Usopp. It's the only way we can continue our journey. Usopp's eyes burned with frustration. You just don't understand, Luffy. Merry is more than just a ship to us. She's our home. His voice rose in pitch, almost pleading. Luffy's fists tightened, his knuckles turning white. I know, Usopp, but we can't keep sailing on a ship that's falling apart. There was a hint of frustration in his voice, but also a deep sense of responsibility. Usopp glared at Luffy, tears of anger welling up. You can't just give up on her like this. I won't let you. His hands were shaking, and his whole body seemed tense, ready to explode. The tension was palpable. Itachi, with his sharp perceptiveness, noticed the subtle shifts in everyone's posture and expression. He saw Nami biting her lower lip, her eyes darting between Luffy and Usopp. Zoro's grip on his swords tightened, a silent testament to his readiness to step in if things escalated. Luffy took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Usopp, I'm not giving up on Mary. She's given us so much, but it's our turn to let her rest. We'll build a new ship in her honor, one that can take us to the end of the Grand Line. Usopp shook his head vigorously. No, Luffy, you don't get it. You don't understand what Mary means to me, to all of us. His voice was hoarse, and his eyes were red from holding back tears. Sanji and Chopper's arrival. The next morning, as the crew prepared to set out, Sanji and Chopper arrived on the deck. Sanji, always smooth and confident, immediately noticed the tension in the air. The atmosphere was thick with unresolved emotions and unspoken words. Nami-swan, did you miss me? Sanji asked with a flirtatious smile, striking a pose. His attempts to lighten the mood were clear, but they fell flat against the somber backdrop. Nami, rolling her eyes, replied, Now's not the time for that, Sanji. Her tone was gentle but firm, a clear indication that the usual banter would have to wait. Sanji, undeterred, continued his antics, and Itachi watched with curiosity. Zoro, noticing Itachi's interest, decided to introduce him. Itachi, this is Sanji, Zoro said, gesturing toward the blonde cook. He's our cook. Sanji turned his attention to Itachi, his eyes narrowing slightly. And who is this guy? His voice had a curious edge, assessing the newcomer. Itachi stepped forward and introduced himself. I'm Itachi Uchiha. I've recently joined the crew. He spoke calmly, his voice carrying a sense of composed strength. Sanji raised an eyebrow, but before he could say anything, his attention was drawn to Chopper, who was hiding behind Nami. The little reindeer was peeking out nervously, clearly feeling the tension as well. And that's Chopper, Zoro continued. He's our doctor. Itachi smiled at Chopper. Are you a reindeer? He asked, his tone gentle and kind. Chopper's eyes widened in surprise and happiness. Yes, I am. How did you know? His voice was filled with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Itachi chuckled. It was a lucky guess. You must be a sharp doctor. His compliment was sincere, and it seemed to put Chopper at ease. Chopper, delighted by the compliment, started dancing around and cursing playfully. I'm not sharp, you're sharp. You're a sharp guy, Itachi. He danced with joy, his earlier shyness forgotten. Sanji, still curious about Itachi, asked, So, what exactly do you do, Itachi? There was a hint of skepticism in his voice, as if he were still sizing up the new crew member. I'm skilled in ninjutsu and other forms of combat. Itachi replied simply, his expression calm and confident. Sanji nodded, accepting the explanation for now. Well, welcome aboard. His tone was more welcoming now, though the curiosity lingered in his eyes. The news about Robin. The cheerful moment was short-lived as Sanji shared the news about Robin. There's something else. Robin. She said she won't join us anymore. His voice was heavy with the weight of the news, and the cheerful atmosphere from moments ago vanished. The crew fell silent, shock and disbelief written on their faces. Nami was the first to speak. How can that be? Robin is our friend. Her voice was filled with a mixture of confusion and concern. Itachi, puzzled, asked, Robin? Was she one of our crewmates? His tone was calm, but his eyes showed genuine curiosity. Sanji nodded, his expression serious. Yes. She joined us not long ago. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly troubled by the news. Itachi thought back to the wanted posters he had seen. Is she a little girl? He asked, trying to piece together the information. Nami shook her head. No, she's older than us. That wanted poster is old. It was from when she was a child. Her voice softened, her thoughts clearly drifting to Robin's troubled past. Itachi's eyes softened with sympathy. I see. She must have had a difficult past. His tone was filled with understanding, recognizing the weight of Robin's history. Luffy, determined as ever, clenched his fists. I'll find her and bring her back. Robin is part of our crew, and I'm not giving up on her. His voice was filled with conviction, a promise to his crewmates. The crew smiled at Luffy's resolve, and Itachi gave him a small, approving nod. We'll support you, Luffy. Whatever it takes. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight of unwavering support. Tension among the crew. Back in the cabin, the tension reached a breaking point. Usopp was beside himself with frustration and sadness. You're so selfish, Luffy. How can you just abandon Mary like that? His voice was filled with pain, every word a lash of his frustration. Everyone was shocked by Usopp's words. Luffy was visibly trying to control his anger, and Itachi could sense the rising tension. The air was thick with unspoken emotions, the cabin feeling smaller with each passing second. Usopp, you're going too far, Itachi said calmly. I understand your feelings, but you don't understand. Usopp cut him off sharply. You're new to this crew. You know nothing about how much Mary has done for us. His voice was raw, filled with a sense of betrayal. Luffy, unable to hold back his anger any longer, clenched his fists. That's enough, Usopp, he shouted and, in a swift motion, hit Usopp, sending him sprawling. The sound of the impact echoed in the silent cabin. Everyone was stunned into silence, including Itachi and Zoro. Sanji stepped in, grabbing Luffy to hold him back. That's enough, Luffy, he said firmly, his voice a mix of authority and concern. Itachi looked at Usopp, lying on the ground, still struggling to stand. Then I'll leave the CRE, Usopp began. But before he could finish, he suddenly collapsed, falling into a deep sleep. The room was silent, everyone processing what had just happened. Zoro turned to Itachi, his eyes narrowing. What did you do? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Itachi's eyes were now 3-tomo red, the sharingan activated. I used a genjutsu on him and made him sleep, Itachi explained calmly, his voice steady. Sanji's eyes widened. Why did you do that? He asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. He was going to say he would leave the crew, Itachi replied. I couldn't let that happen, so I put him to sleep. Nami, noticing Itachi's red eyes, asked, Is this your devil fruit power? Her voice was filled with curiosity, her eyes wide. Itachi shook his head. No, it's a power from my family. It's called the Sharingan. His tone was explanatory, but there was a hint of pride in his voice. Luffy's anger subsided, replaced by curiosity. So cool, he exclaimed, his eyes wide with amazement. Chopper quickly checked on Usopp, confirming he was just asleep. Everyone sighed in relief. Luffy looked at Itachi and said, Thank you, Itachi. Itachi gave a small smile. I'm part of the crew as well. No need for thanks. His voice was warm, and his smile genuine. Everyone smiled, appreciating Itachi's efforts to keep the crew together. The next day, they gathered to discuss their plan to find Robin. The mood was more hopeful, the bond between them feeling stronger despite the recent tensions. Water 7 arrival. The crew walking in the alley towards Water 7, a city famous for its shipwrights. They hoped to find Robin and build their new ship. As they approached, they were suddenly chased by the locals. What's happening? Nami shouted, trying to steer the ship through the narrow canals. We didn't do anything. Luffy yelled back, confusion written all over his face. The crew looked at their captain, suspecting he might have caused some trouble. The locals were shouting, You tried to kill Iceberg. You're not forgiven. The crew was shocked. We didn't do anything. Nami yelled back, trying to reason with them. Zoro, as usual, was heading in the wrong direction, and Itachi stayed close to guide him. You're terrible with directions, aren't you? Itachi said with a deadpan expression. Zoro flushed with embarrassment and anger. Shut up, he retorted, though his tone was more embarrassed than hostile. The crew managed to find a temporary refuge in a high building. They sat down, trying to catch their breath and figure out their next move. Luffy, determined, said, I'll go see Iceberg and clear this up. You guys stay here. The crew nodded, trusting their captain. Luffy made his way to Iceberg's mansion, entering through a window. He was met with hostility but dodged everyone and reached Iceberg's room. Iceberg, covered in bandages, dismissed his guards. "I want to talk to Luffy," Iceberg said, his voice firm despite his injuries. Luffy, standing at the edge of the room, was ready to hear the truth. The chapter ends here, leaving everyone on edge about what Iceberg would reveal and how it would affect their mission to find Robin and build their new ship. I made some changes to what happens in the canon, and I think it turned out great. This part might be somewhat short, but I will try to make future chapters longer. Please enjoy the story, leave a review, and give a like if you enjoy it. And just a reminder, I do not own Naruto or One Piece. The air in Iceberg's room was thick with tension as Luffy stood before the weary mayor, Iceberg, his pistol aimed with a steady hand. Khalifa, Iceberg's assistant, hovered quietly by the door, her gaze shifting between the two men, curiosity mingled with concern. "Why are you here, Luffy?" Iceberg's voice was strained, the lines of exhaustion etched deep into his face. Luffy, his expression earnest yet resolute, met Iceberg's gaze squarely. "I need to know the truth. What happened? Who did this to you?" Outside, the commotion had quieted somewhat, though the tension among Paulie, Rob Lucci, Kaku, and Tilestone still hung palpably in the air. Paulie's brows furrowed as he exchanged a quick glance with Rob Lucci, who remained stoic, assessing the situation with a calculated gaze. Iceberg's eyes narrowed slightly, scrutinizing Luffy as if searching for any hint of deception. "Why should I believe you, Straw Hat?" His voice was edged with suspicion and fatigue. Luffy's fists clenched at his sides, his resolve unwavering. "Robin wouldn't do this. She's our Nakama. She's the only one who can read the poneglyphs." Iceberg's lips tightened into a thin line, his grip on the pistol faltering imperceptibly. "She was with masked men," Iceberg interjected, his voice tinged with bitterness. "They want Pluton. They think I have the blueprint." Luffy's mind raced. Pluton, a name that carried weight in the world of ancient weapons. He recalled Iceberg's earlier caution about Robin's loyalties conflicting with his own unyielding trust in his crewmate. "I'll find Robin," Luffy declared, his voice firm and unwavering. "And bring her back." Iceberg's expression softened marginally, though his weariness remained evident. "You can leave," he said finally, lowering the pistol. "But don't mistake this for trust." As Luffy exited Iceberg's room, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty swirled within him. He rejoined his crewmates, where Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, and Itachi awaited with bated breath. Itachi's revelation and discussion. "So, Itachi," Sanji began, leaning forward with genuine interest, "you've got this sharingan thing. What can it do, exactly?" Itachi, seated calmly among them, clasped his hands together. "The sharingan is a unique eye technique. It grants me the ability to cast illusions and perceive movements with exceptional clarity," he explained, his voice steady and measured. Usopp's eyes widened with fascination. "Like when you put that illusion on me earlier. That was incredible." Itachi nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yes, that was a basic illusion. There are more advanced techniques, such as predicting an opponent's movements in combat." Chopper, his curiosity piqued, chimed in eagerly. "Can you really walk on water like a ninja? Or create clones of yourself?" Itachi chuckled softly. "Yes, I can," he confirmed, his demeanor modest yet confident. "But these abilities require extensive training and control." Nami, always pragmatic, interjected with urgent news. "We need to prepare for the high tide. It's coming soon, and we must move to higher ground." Sanji, ever the strategist, nodded in agreement. "Above the water gates would be our safest bet. We don't want to get swept away." Itachi, surprised by the urgency of the impending tide, nodded in agreement with Sanji's assessment. "Agreed. We should make our move now." The crew, united by a sense of impending danger and mutual trust, prepared to relocate swiftly, their interactions with Itachi strengthening their bond as a cohesive unit. As they settled into a temporary refuge above the water gates, the crew's thoughts turned once more to Robin and the unsettling revelations about her actions. Nami, ever the strategist, pondered aloud the motivations behind Robin's seeming betrayal. I just can't believe Robin would betray us like this, Nami murmured, her brow furrowed with concern. There has to be more to this story. Usopp, Sanji, and Chopper expressed sympathy and concern, grappling with the idea that their friend might have been coerced or misled into such drastic actions. Zoro, leaning against a railing with his arms crossed, interjected with a touch of realism. We have to consider the worst-case scenario, though. What if she really has turned against us? Itachi, his gaze thoughtful yet reserved, drew from his own experiences of sacrifice and duty. Sometimes, loyalty and betrayal are not so clear-cut, he mused aloud, his voice carrying a weight of understanding. There could be reasons behind her actions that we don't yet understand. Sanji, reflecting on his past interactions with Robin, remembered her stoic demeanor and the sadness that lurked behind her calm exterior. She always seemed like she was carrying a heavy burden, he recalled quietly, his eyes distant with thought. Itachi nodded in agreement with Sanji's observation. Indeed, Robin may be acting under duress or for a greater cause, a cause she believes in deeply. The crew fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as they contemplated the complexities of trust and loyalty. Despite the uncertainty surrounding Robin's actions, their shared history and growing camaraderie fortified their resolve to confront the truth together. His crewmates gathered around him, their faces reflecting a mix of anticipation and concern. They waited in silence as Luffy prepared to share what he had learned. Luffy returned to the crew, the weight of Iceberg's revelations heavy on his shoulders. His crewmates gathered around him, their faces reflecting a mix of anticipation and concern. They waited in silence as Luffy prepared to share what he had learned. Guys, Luffy began, his voice serious and somber. Iceberg told me something unbelievable. Robin. She was the one who tried to kill him. Gasps of disbelief echoed among the crew. Usopp's eyes widened, Chopper covered his mouth in shock, and Nami's expression darkened with concern. Sanji clenched his fists, struggling to reconcile this news with his memories of Robin. Itachi, quietly observing the crew's reactions, interjected with a probing question. "What is Poneglyph?" he asked, his voice calm but insistent. All eyes turned to Nami, who took a deep breath to steady herself before explaining. Poneglyphs are ancient inscriptions left behind by the ancestors. Some of them contain blueprints for ancient weapons, she began, her voice tinged with seriousness. Itachi nodded thoughtfully. Weapons that could potentially destroy islands or worse, he concluded, his eyes narrowing slightly. Nami nodded gravely. Exactly. It's no wonder they'd be after Robin if she can read poneglyphs, she added, her mind racing with the implications. Itachi, absorbing this new information, connected the dots with a hint of surprise. So they need Robin to access these ancient weapons, specifically Pluton, he mused aloud, his voice trailing off in contemplation. As the crew processed the gravity of the situation, unaware of the eavesdropper nearby, Itachi's sharp instincts suddenly kicked in. Sensing a presence listening in on their conversation, he swiftly drew a kunai and hurled it towards the source of the sound. The blade cut through the air with precision, grazing the eavesdropper's blue hair before embedding itself into the wall. Startled by the sudden attack, the eavesdropper stumbled out into the open. Itachi and Zoro, their senses sharp, demanded the intruder reveal themselves. Out emerged a burly man with a shock of blue hair and an unconventional outfit consisting mostly of his underpants. Beside him stood two women, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. "I'm Frankie," the man announced boldly, scratching his head. "And these are my sisters, Mozu and Kiwi," he added, gesturing to the two women. Luffy, never one to shy away from new faces, stepped forward with a grin. "Nice to meet you, Frankie. Why were you eavesdropping?" he asked bluntly, his curiosity piqued. Frankie rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. "I heard you guys talking about Robin and Pluton," he admitted, his tone serious now. "I might know a thing or two about those." The crew exchanged glances, intrigued by Frankie's sudden appearance and his apparent knowledge of their predicament. "We need to talk," Luffy declared, his expression firm as he gestured for Frankie and his sisters to join them aboard the ship. After Frankie and his sisters, Mozu and Kiwi, joined the Straw Hat Pirates aboard the Going Merry, the atmosphere aboard the ship was tense yet charged with determination. They gathered in a circle on the deck, facing each other with eyes filled with resolve and questions. Luffy, always direct and eager for answers, spoke up first. Frankie, tell us everything you know about Robin and Pluton. Frankie took a deep breath, his expression grave. You all know what Pluton is, right? He glanced around at the crew, receiving nods of affirmation. Let's go back to the past then, shall we? Sanji and Usopp exchanged uneasy glances, but Itachi interjected calmly, his sharingan activated and focused. The past is crucial. It can illuminate our path forward, he stated with a hint of authority. Frankie nodded, recognizing the weight in Itachi's words. All right, here's what happened, he began, his voice tinged with bitterness. Tom was like a father to us, the best shipbuilder in Water 7. We were all happy, working under him alongside his wife, Kokoro. Nami chimed in, recalling their encounter with Kokoro at the Water 7 rail station. I remember her. She seemed kind. Frankie nodded sadly. Yeah, she was. But then came Spandam, he continued, venom seeping into his voice. He was a former member of CP5, working under the world government. A collective gasp filled the air. Everyone except Luffy, Itachi, Zoro, and Sanji visibly shocked by this revelation. Itachi's expression remained impassive, though he was clearly absorbing every detail with intense focus. So, Spandam approached Tom for the Pluton blueprint, Itachi surmised calmly. Frankie nodded grimly. Yes. Tom refused, of course. But Spandam used my warship against us, attacking Water 7 and falsely accusing Tom of treason. His voice tightened with emotion. Tom was executed. All eyes turned to Zoro, who spoke up with his characteristic directness. So, you're saying Spandam is behind this? Frankie nodded again, his fists clenched in anger and determination. Now they're after Iceberg. He was shot as a warning. Itachi's voice cut through the tension once more. So, they'll likely attack again, he concluded, his tone grave. Especially with the weather indicating a nighttime assault, before the tide rises. Sanji nodded in agreement. Itachi's right. We need to move quickly. Luffy, cracking his knuckles in anticipation, interrupted with his trademark determination. It doesn't matter. We'll bring Robin back, no matter what, and we'll beat whoever stands in our way. A ripple of determination spread through the crew. Itachi couldn't help but notice the interaction between Frankie and his sisters, Mozu and Kiwi. They stood close together, their bond evident in their supportive gestures and shared glances. Itachi's gaze flickered briefly with a grim expression, a fleeting reminder of his own past with Sasuke and the complexities of sibling relationships. Nami, Zoro, and Sanji noticed Itachi's somber expression and exchanged concerned glances. Hey, Itachi, you all right? Nami asked gently, her voice tinged with empathy. Itachi blinked, momentarily lost in memories before focusing on his crewmates. He offered a small, reassuring smile. Yes, just old memories, he replied quietly. No need to worry about it. The crew nodded understandingly, silently acknowledging Itachi's unspoken thoughts. They turned their attention back to Frankie as he continued to recount the events leading up to the present crisis. Frankie turned to his sisters, Mozu and Kiwi, with concern etched on his face. You should go to the upper levels. It's dangerous here. Mozu shook her head defiantly. No, we want to stay with our brothers, she insisted, glancing at Frankie with unwavering loyalty. Frankie sighed, but a small smile played on his lips. All right, but be careful. There are rules in our family, after all, he said softly, his gaze lingering on his sisters with affection. Kiwi nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. We have to stick together. Frankie then turned to the crew with a serious expression. Where's your ship, Straw Hat? Nami's face darkened slightly. It's in bad shape, beyond repair, she admitted reluctantly. Usopp's expression turned grim as he recalled the sorry state of the Going Merry. Yeah, it's beyond anything I can fix, he added sadly. Frankie nodded thoughtfully. I'll try to restore it one last time, he said decisively. And then, I'll build you a new ship. Usopp's eyes widened with gratitude and a hint of tears. Really? That would be amazing. Luffy grinned broadly, slapping Usopp on the back. Thanks, Frankie. We're counting on you. With their plan set in motion, the crew made their way towards Iceberg's mansion. Unbeknownst to them, in a secluded location not far away, masked figures stood in shadowy silence. Among them, Robin stood with an inscrutable expression. The lead figure spoke quietly, their words carrying an ominous weight. You know what to do, the masked figure instructed Robin, their tone firm. After you've dealt with Iceberg, bring us the blueprint. Play smart, Robin. You know the consequences if you fail. Robin's brow furrowed slightly, a hint of tension betraying her thoughts. She knew the gravity of her mission and the risks involved. Her mind raced with conflicting emotions, loyalty to her crewmates and the weight of her past decisions. Back aboard the Going Merry, the crew navigated through the bustling streets of Water 7, drawing curious glances from the locals. They moved with purpose, each member deep in their thoughts and preparations for the impending confrontation. As they approached Iceberg's mansion, a sense of urgency hung in the air. The crew braced themselves for what lay ahead, knowing that their next actions could determine the course of their journey and the safety of their friends. Inside Iceberg's mansion, tensions ran high as Iceberg himself prepared for the inevitable attack. He stood resolute, his mind racing with strategies to protect himself and the valuable information he possessed. Khalifa, his loyal assistant, moved quietly around him, her expression one of concern and determination. Outside, on the mansion's perimeter, Paulie and the Galila foreman stood watchful, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of impending danger. They were prepared to defend their leader and friend at all costs, their loyalty unwavering in the face of uncertainty. Back on the Going Merry, Itachi leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. His sharingan eye glowed faintly, a testament to his readiness and vigilance. He sensed the approaching threat, his instincts honed by years of training and experience. Sanji approached Itachi quietly, a cigarette dangling from his lips. You seem calm, even in the face of this, he remarked, his tone respectful yet curious. Itachi turned to Sanji, his expression unreadable yet tinged with a hint of weariness. I've faced similar challenges before, he replied cryptically. But this time, I fight alongside comrades I trust. Sanji nodded knowingly, understanding the weight of Itachi's words. Yeah, we've got each other's backs, he affirmed, a sense of camaraderie evident in his voice. Meanwhile, Zoro stood at the ship's bow, his swords gleaming in the sunlight. His mind was focused on the battle ahead, his senses attuned to every movement and sound. He was prepared to unleash his full strength to protect his captain and crewmates. Usopp busied himself with checking his ammunition, his face set in determination. He had faced countless dangers alongside the Straw Hat Pirates, but this new threat posed a different kind of challenge. His fingers moved deftly as he prepared his weapons, his thoughts racing with strategies and contingencies. Nami approached Luffy, her expression serious yet filled with unwavering determination. We need to be ready for anything, she reminded him, her voice carrying a sense of urgency. Iceberg's counting on us to protect him. Luffy nodded solemnly, his fists clenched in determination. Yeah, we'll keep him safe, he declared, his gaze unwavering. And we'll bring Robin back, no matter what. The crew assembled outside Iceberg's mansion, their resolve palpable in the air. They exchanged knowing glances, their bond strengthened by shared experiences and unwavering trust. Inside the mansion, Iceberg stood before a map of Water 7, his finger tracing the city's intricate layout. He knew the stakes were high, his every decision critical to the outcome of the impending confrontation. Khalifa approached Iceberg quietly, her presence a comforting presence amidst the turmoil. We're ready for them, she assured him, her voice steady despite the underlying tension. Iceberg nodded, his expression resolute. Thank you, Khalifa, he replied gratefully. We must be prepared for whatever comes. As night fell over Water 7, the crew of the Going Merry stood vigil outside Iceberg's mansion. The air was thick with anticipation, each member poised for action at a moment's notice. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, their movements swift and purposeful. It was Robin, her face a mask of determination as she approached Iceberg's mansion with purpose. The crew tensed, their eyes fixed on Robin with a mixture of relief and apprehension. They knew that her allegiance was torn between loyalty to her crewmates and the weight of her past. Robin paused before the mansion's gates, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She knew the gravity of her mission and the risks involved, yet her resolve remained steadfast. Inside the mansion, Iceberg and Khalifa stood ready, their eyes trained on the approaching figure. They knew that the next moments would determine the course of their fate and the safety of Water 7. With their plan set in motion, the crew made their way towards Iceberg's mansion. Unbeknownst to them, in a secluded location, masked figures stood in shadowy silence. Among them, Robin stood with an inscrutable expression. The lead figure spoke quietly, their words carrying an ominous weight. "You know what to do," the masked figure instructed Robin, their tone firm. "After you've dealt with Iceberg, bring us the blueprint. Play smart, Robin. You know the consequences if you fail." Robin's brow furrowed slightly, a hint of tension betraying her thoughts. The stage was set for the next move in this unfolding drama. Robin stood in the dimly lit room alongside a masked figure, waiting for their orders. The atmosphere was heavy with tension, the air thick with anticipation. The din-din mushy rang, breaking the silence. The voice on the other end was cold and authoritative. "You are ready to engage. Begin the operation." Robin nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of her task. The masked figure beside her remained silent, his presence ominous. They moved swiftly, each step bringing them closer to the inevitable confrontation. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the Straw Hat Pirates were on high alert. Nami, Sanji, Itachi, and Zoro stood ready, watching the perimeter. Itachi's keen eyes scanned the surroundings, noting the guards stationed around the mansion. "We will wait here until the fight starts," he advised, his voice calm and measured. "The guards are expecting us. We need the element of surprise." Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed through the night, drawing everyone's attention. Itachi turned to Luffy. "Are you ready?" he asked, but to his amusement, Luffy was already sprinting towards the mansion. "What is he doing?" Sanji muttered, exasperated. "Don't waste time," Itachi urged. "Let's hurry." Inside the mansion, Iceberg and his assistant, Khalifa, were in his office, surrounded by his most trusted foremen, Paulie, Kaku, Rob Lucci, and Tilestone. Iceberg called Paulie over and whispered urgently, "I need to speak with you in private." The others nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, and stepped outside. Iceberg handed Paulie a key. "This is for the blueprint of Pluton. Keep it safe. They are after it." Paulie nodded solemnly. "I'll protect it with my life." As he left the room, a hidden door in the wall slid open, revealing Robin and the masked man. Iceberg's eyes widened in shock. "That's how you got in last time," he realized. The masked man turned to Robin. "Do your work," he ordered coldly before slipping back into the shadows. Outside, Luffy approached a side gate guarded by local townspeople. "Sorry about this," he muttered, before shouting, "Gum Gum Pistol." His punch knocked the guards aside effortlessly. Meanwhile, Zoro, Nami, Sanji, Chopper, and Itachi approached the main gate. They spotted the masked man moving swiftly along the wall. Nami gasped. "He got away." Itachi's eyes narrowed, his sharingan gleaming. "No, that's not a he. That's a she, and I know her quite well," he corrected calmly. He turned to Nami. "You know the assistant who works with Iceberg?" Nami nodded. "Yes, I know her. That blonde girl, right?" Itachi nodded again. Nami's eyes widened as she connected the dots. "Don't tell me that she's the masked man." "Sorry, woman." He nodded in confirmation. Sanji asked, "How do you know?" Itachi answered, "It's because of my eyes. I can sense her." Nami asked, "Is there any possibility that you might be wrong?" Itachi looked in the direction where they had last seen the masked woman. "The chances are very slim. I'm 99% sure." Before they could react, more local guards rushed towards them. Zoro unsheathed his swords and with a swift swing, knocked several guards out. Sanji followed, delivering powerful kicks, while Nami used her climb attack to create gusts of wind. Itachi formed hand seals and unleashed a large fireball. Katon. Fireball jutsu. The fireball exploded, scattering the remaining guards. Zoro grinned at Itachi. You're pretty strong. Itachi nodded in acknowledgement. Chopper checked the unconscious guards. They're just knocked out, nothing serious. They moved towards Iceberg's room with urgency. Paulie, meanwhile, had reached the secret room where the blueprint was stored. As he unlocked the door, he felt a presence behind him and turned to see two masked figures. He was stunned. Back on the ground floor, Itachi suggested, "You should go through the corridor. I'll take a different route." Sanji raised an eyebrow. How so? Itachi demonstrated by walking up the wall, defying gravity. The crew watched in awe. Right? You're a ninja, Nami remarked, shaking her head. Focus, guys. Let's move. Itachi created a shadow clone. This will help guide you, he said, looking at Zoro. Stay with the clone, or you'll get lost. Zoro scowled. Shut up, he snapped, while Sanji chuckled. As Itachi neared Iceberg's room, he saw two shadows moving inside. He paused, listening to the conversation. Why did you betray your crew? Iceberg's voice was strained with a mix of anger and confusion. Robin, her gun aimed at Iceberg, replied, I had to. Otherwise, my crew and this city would have been destroyed. Iceberg's expression softened slightly. What do you mean? Robin's voice trembled. If I didn't cooperate, they would have called a buster call on the Straw Hats. In a buster call, they destroy everything. Men, women, children. Just like they did to O'Hara. The name slipped from her lips, and she visibly tensed. Itachi chose that moment to act. He burst through the window, startling Robin, who pointed her gun at him. Who are you? She demanded. Itachi's gaze was steady and sympathetic. I am Itachi Uchiha, a new member of the Straw Hat Pirates. I came to rescue you. Robin's hands shook, but before she could react, the masked man entered the room. Shoot him, he ordered Robin, but she hesitated, looking between the masked man and Itachi. Itachi's sharingan spun, changing into the mangyeko sharingan. The masked man froze, trapped in Itachi's Tsukuyami. He found himself surrounded by multiple Itachis, each wielding a sword. What is this? The masked man gasped, feeling real pain as the swords pierced him. My body is supposed to be invulnerable, the masked man thought. Itachi coldly stated, You are under my illusion, trapped for 48 hours. The masked man felt every stab, and though only a minute had passed, he was already panicking and screaming. In the real world, only a few seconds had passed, but to the masked man, it felt like hours. He screamed in agony, Get away from me! Robin and Iceberg watched in horror and confusion. What's happening? Robin asked Itachi, her voice shaky. He is under my jinjutsu, an illusion that traps him in a nightmare, Itachi explained calmly. After what seemed like an eternity, the masked man collapsed, panting heavily. What are you? A demon? He rasped. Itachi shrugged. Say what you want, but you used one of my crew. Now, you will pay for what you've done. Robin watched in awe and curiosity. She noticed Itachi giving her a warm smile, which made her feel ashamed. She hid her eyes from him. Itachi, however, gave her a reassuring look. For the first time in a long while, he thought she was very beautiful. The last time he had felt this way was for Izumi, but remembering what he did to her, he composed himself. Turning to Iceberg, Itachi's expression grew serious. There is bad news for you too. You are going to be betrayed. Iceberg's eyes widened in disbelief. Who? You'll find out soon enough, Itachi replied enigmatically, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Paulie stood in the secret room, his heart racing as he faced two masked men. Shocked, he quickly grabbed his pipe-hitch knives and attacked, but the masked men dodged his strikes effortlessly. Damn it, who are you guys? Paulie shouted, frustration and confusion lacing his voice. Just as Paulie prepared for another attack, Luffy burst through the window, shattering the glass. Paulie! Luffy shouted, landing on the floor with a thud. He quickly assessed the situation, seeing the two masked men. He launched his gum-gum pistol, but the masked men dodged his attack like paper. He used gum-gum bazooka again, but they dodged it. Luffy was frustrated and shouted, "Stay still, you bastard!" But the masked man dodged and landed a hit on Luffy's face. One of the masked men spoke to the other, "There's no time. We need to go." The other nodded and used a U-shaped steel rod to trap Luffy and Paulie to the floor, pinning their hands and legs. The masked men seized the blueprint and examined it. "These are fake." One of them growled, furious. Paulie laughed. "I didn't know they were fake either." Ignoring them, the masked men moved towards Iceberg's room. Outside, a masked woman was using her whip to knock out the locals, clearing the way. She too headed towards the room. Meanwhile, Zoro, Sanji, Itachi's clone, Chopper, and Nami were running through the corridors. As always, Zoro took all the wrong turns, and Itachi's clone had to guide him. Nami sighed in relief. Thank God Itachi joined our crew, or in this big mansion, Zoro would be lost forever. Zoro, angry, snapped at Sanji, who was laughing, and at Itachi, who was continuously nagging him. They finally reached Iceberg's room and saw a large, fat masked man fainted on the floor. They also saw Itachi, Robin, and Iceberg. Zoro and Itachi's clone entered together. Iceberg, shocked, exclaimed, "There are two Itachis?" Robin, also surprised, watched as the clone poofed into smoke. Itachi explained, "It was my clone, one of my techniques." Robin, still curious, asked with a stoic face, "What is your devil fruit power?" Itachi shook his head. "It's not a devil fruit power. It's my Uchiha family ability." His eyes darkened as he spoke, and both Robin and Zoro noticed the depth of sorrow in his eyes. Robin couldn't help but think that his eyes seemed to have witnessed many deaths and losses. Robin was openly staring at him. Itachi looked at her and showed his red eyes. One thought came to her mind. His eyes are beautiful, and he is also good-looking as well. Back with Luffy and Paulie, Luffy used his rubber abilities to free himself. Paulie looked at him and said, "Is your devil fruit power related to rubber?" Luffy replied, "Yes, I ate the gum-gum fruit." Paulie looked at him and said, "Sorry for accusing you of murdering my friend." Luffy gave him a big smile and said, "No need." Using his power, he removed the metal rods that were pinning Paulie. Paulie helped him and said, "Let's go to Iceberg's room." They started running towards Iceberg's room. Itachi, Robin, Sanji, Nami, Zoro, Chopper, Iceberg, and the fainted masked man were all gathered. Suddenly, 3 more masked figures entered. They removed their masks, revealing themselves as Khalifa, Kaku, and Rob Lucci, Iceberg's trusted men. Iceberg, stunned, turned to Itachi. "How did you know they would betray me?" Itachi closed his eyes. "My eyes helped me identify your assistant, Khalifa." Khalifa, taken aback but quickly recovering, maintained her composure. Rob Lucci began to speak. "You are observant, Itachi, but we don't have much time." He attacked Nami, but Zoro blocked it with his sword. The impact was strong, throwing Zoro toward the door. Everyone shouted, "Zoro!" Sanji ran and kicked Rob, but it had little effect, and Rob threw him aside. Zoro recovered and engaged Kaku in a sword fight. Kaku sneered, "I'm a swordsman too. Fight me." Rob instructed Kaku, "We don't have time." He used his finger pistol technique aimed at Zoro. Itachi, wide-eyed, shouted, "Zoro, dodge." But it was too late. Zoro was knocked out and thrown out the window. Robin looking in the horror but can't do anything. Nami and Chopper were in tears. Itachi, enraged, used his fireball jutsu, but Rob dodged it. Rob taunted, "You can use fire, nice." The fat masked man, still trembling, warned, "Don't look into his eyes. He's a demon." Rob narrowed his eyes at his teammate, who was fainting in fear, and ordered him to make a door. He then ominously added, "I think your friend is still alive." Iceberg's eyes widened in realization. At that moment, Luffy barged in, starting a fight with his gum-gum pistol. Kaku intervened, and Sanji also joined the fray. Khalifa, seeing an opportunity, used her whip to knock Sanji out of the mansion. Itachi, having had enough, used amaterasu, his eye bleeding from the strain. Black flames engulfed Kaku, and within moments, there was nothing left but ashes. Luffy and many others were shocked. The big fat man was scared and exclaimed, "You demon!" Khalifa, shocked, shouted, "Kaku!" Rob, witnessing his comrade's demise before his eyes, was enraged. Luffy and Rob refocused their attention on each other. Luffy used his Gum Gum Bazooka and attacked Rob. Rob transformed into his leopard form and delivered a powerful punch, creating a shockwave. Itachi, wide-eyed, realized the strength of the punch, but he got distracted and was also hit by Rob, sending him flying into another tall building. Chopper, in tears, screamed, "Itachi!" Nami also shouted, "Itachi!" Robin watched him in shock and begged, "Rob, please don't do this. I will come to Eni's lobby." After looking at Robin's scared face, he smirked and instructed the masked man named Blueno to make a door. He turned back and announced, "In 3 minutes, this mansion will blow up." Everyone was shocked. Robin, with tears in her eyes, apologized to her crew before leaving with Rob. Nami shouted after her, "Robin, please come back." But Robin only responded, "I'm sorry, guys," before disappearing. After the massive explosion engulfed the mansion in flames, Nami was knocked unconscious and jumped from the 3rd floor. All the local people gathered around her, recognizing her as being from the Straw Hat crew. "She's from the Straw Hats, right?" one local asked. "Yes, that's her. I think she got caught in the blast," another replied. "What should we do?" a third local questioned. "Let's capture her and turn her over to the Marines. They tried to kill Iceberg." Chopper helped Iceberg out, and all the locals looked on in shock and began to assist them. Iceberg intervened, saying, "They didn't try to kill me. They helped me. Please, don't do anything. Just try to find them." The locals nodded in understanding and dispersed to search for the Straw Hat crew members. At Gate 3, Usopp, Frankie, his sisters, and the Frankie family were gathered around the Mary, feverishly working to prepare her for what might be her final voyage. Frankie, his hands on the ship's worn-out hull, turned to Usopp with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Why are you so determined to fix her, Usopp?" Frankie asked, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. Usopp paused, his gaze drifting over the familiar curves of the Mary. "She was there with us from the start, on our journey through the Grant Line. This ship, she was a gift from someone very dear to me." Frankie's eyes softened, and a tear rolled down his cheek. "You're a sentimental one, bro," he muttered, his voice thick with emotion. Usopp chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his head. "Thanks, but why are you crying, Frankie?" The Frankie family, wiping tears from their eyes, chimed in unison. "We're not crying, you jerk." Reflecting for a moment, Usopp recalled a poignant memory. "Back in Skypiea, I saw a child in a yellow raincoat diligently working on the ship. He said, 'Don't worry, I'll fix her.'" Frankie's attention sharpened as he listened intently. "You saw Klabauterman," he murmured, a mixture of reverence and wonder in his voice. "It's said that when a crew truly loves their ship, Klabauterman appears to repair it." Moved by the memory and the significance of the ship's presence in their lives, Usopp embraced the Mary tightly, tears welling up in his eyes. Suddenly, the door swung open, breaking the solemn moment. Rob Lucci, Khalifa, Blueno, and Kaku stood in the doorway, their presence casting a dark shadow over the scene. Rob's piercing glare cut through the air as he demanded, "Where is the blueprint, Frankie?" Suddenly, the door swung open, disrupting the solemn moment. Rob Lucci, Khalifa, Blueno, and a figure cloaked in black stood in the doorway, their presence casting a dark shadow over the scene. Rob's piercing glare cut through the air as he demanded, "Where is the blueprint, Frankie? Or should I say Cutty Flam?" He smirked, enjoying the shock that spread across Frankie's face. Frankie, his sisters Mozu and Kiwi, Usopp, and the rest of the Frankie family quickly assumed defensive stances. Usopp, though clearly scared and shaking, shouted, "Who are you?" Rob ignored him, focusing solely on Frankie. I'll ask you one last time. Where are the blueprints, Frankie? Frankie laughed, attempting to appear nonchalant. Which blueprints are you talking about? I don't have any. I'm just a simple bounty hunter, that's all. Rob said with a piercing glare. You know very well what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Pluton blueprint. Frankie, who already knew, replied, Like I said, I don't have it. Rob sighed heavily and said, You leave me no choice. After saying that, Khalifa and Blueno stepped forward, ready to fight. Frankie's Kairiki destroyers also stepped forward, and one of the members said, Don't worry, brother, I will not let them touch you. Another member added, That's right. If you want to fight our boss, you have to fight us first. Frankie, clapping, said, That's what I'm talking about. Show them what you can do. Encouraged by their boss, they roared and charged at the intruders with their weapons. However, Khalifa's whip and Blueno's brute strength easily knocked them all out, leaving Frankie, Usopp, and Frankie's sisters in shock. Frankie muttered to himself, I know they're strong, but this… As Khalifa and Blueno were about to fight Frankie, Rob told them to hold for a second. A din-din mushi rang with its familiar para-puru-puru sound. A cold voice came through, asking, Did you get the blueprints? Rob replied, No, but we have confirmed that Frankie, also known as Cutty Flam, has them. The other end of the din-din mushi was silent for a moment before a maniacal laugh echoed through. Cutty Flam, we have hit the jackpot. I can confirm that he has the blueprints with him. Capture him, and if he resists, you know what to do. But I want him alive. The call ended with another chilling laugh. Rob Lucci turned to Khalifa and Blueno. We have a new target. Capture Frankie and take him with us. Frankie, Usopp, and Frankie's sisters were stunned. Mozu and Kiwi shouted defiantly, We won't let you. Khalifa smirked. There's no easy way, is there, Blueno? Blueno smirked back. Shall we begin? The fight erupted. Blueno moved toward Frankie with high speed, and Frankie's eyes widened as he couldn't dodge the attack. Blueno's blow sent Frankie crashing into the wall, forming a crater. As Frankie lay in the crater, his sister started shouting. Brother, she cried. Frankie, despite the hit, swung his strong right fist at Blueno, who initially stood firm, confident he wouldn't be harmed. However, as Frankie's fist made contact with his gut, Blueno felt a strange numbness spread through his body. Is this exhaustion from fighting that demon? Or was this punch really strong? He wondered. Meanwhile, Khalifa used her spiked whip on Frankie, but he barely felt it due to his metal body. Khalifa kept her stoic expression, but Frankie grinned and taunted, as a cyborg. This is nothing. Suddenly, he felt himself being pulled. Khalifa used her brute force to wrap her whip around him, throwing him toward the Mary. Smirking, she said, How about that? Usopp, terrified and angry, shouted, Hey, don't throw him toward the Mary, you jerks. Frankie's sister, who heard that, responded angrily, What are you worried about? You should be worried about my brother. As Blueno observed the conversation, he saw the lever connected to the ship and grinned. He approached the lever, which Usopp noticed with a shock. Wide-eyed, Usopp ran and tried to use his satchel to stop Blueno. He threw a bomb, and after the explosion, a thick cloud of smoke filled the area. When the smoke cleared, Blueno stood still, smirking. Usopp attacked again, creating another blast of smoke, but once it dissipated, Blueno remained unharmed and was about to pull the lever. Suddenly, Frankie's strong right smashed into Blueno's face, making him stagger back. Blueno felt the impact and, covering his face, noticed blood dripping. He looked up to see Frankie's grinning face. Blueno was about to use his power when Rob Lucci put a hand on his shoulder. Losing patience, Rob transformed into his leopard form. With blinding speed, he delivered a powerful punch to Frankie's face, sending him crashing into a wall. Mozu and Kiwi, who witnessed the attack, were shocked and rushed toward their brother. However, Khalifa's whip knocked them out as well. Usopp, seeing his friends fall, was paralyzed with fear. Rob approached him, ignoring Usopp's attempts to fight back, and pulled the lever. The gate to Dock 3 opened, and the water began to rush out, carrying the Mary with it. Usopp was reeing every hard what he saw in his own eye. Rob sneered, "Your boat will float on these high tides, right?" His words dripped with sarcasm and menace. Usopp, devastated, started crying. "I will never forgive you. My friends will come and beat you." Rob smirked. "I think they will. Isn't that right, Robin?" The figure in the black cloak removed their hood, revealing Nico Robin. Usopp was shocked. "Robin, why?" Robin, her expression pained, said, "I'm no longer part of the crew." Blueno lifted the unconscious Frankie, and the group began to leave. Usopp stood there, stunned and heartbroken, tears streaming down his face. Usopp stood in the now empty Gate 3, watching the Mary drift away with the tide. Anger and sorrow battled within him, but he steeled himself. He turned around and saw Frankie's sisters and his crew members, gritting his teeth. "I can't let them get away with this," he muttered, turning on his heel and sprinting towards Iceberg's mansion. The wind whipped around him, carrying the scent of the sea and the promise of a storm. He glanced at the sky, noting the darkening clouds. "I need to hurry. The tide will be high at midnight." At Iceberg's mansion, Chopper was tending to Nami, who was lying on a cot, her skin still red from the recent battle. Iceberg sat under a tree, bandaged and pensive, while Paulie and the shipwrights stood nearby, anxiously awaiting any news. Paulie, anger evident on his face, said, "I can't believe they betrayed us." Iceberg, looking somber, made a grim face and glanced at Chopper, who was treating Nami. He then addressed Paulie, "Stay here. I want to talk to this girl, and it's very important." Paulie nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Chopper checked Nami's temperature and said, "You're lucky you didn't get burned. After some rest, you'll be fine." Nami nodded, her gratitude evident. "Thank you, Chopper." Iceberg, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Did you hear what Robin said after Rob Lucci punched Itachi?" Nami's eyes darkened with worry. "She said they were taking her to Eni's lobby." Iceberg's face grew grim. Eni's lobby, also known as the Judicial Island. It's said that once someone is jailed there, there's no ray of light, and no one has ever escaped. Nami swallowed hard, fear creeping into her voice. Eni's lobby, the headquarters of the world government. Iceberg nodded. "And beyond that, there's the Gate of Justice." Nami repeated, "The Gate of Justice?" "It's a massive gate located at the end of the Bridge of Hesitation," Iceberg explained. "Once a criminal passes through, there's no hope of ever escaping." Tears welled up in Nami's eyes. Iceberg gave a serious look and continued, "The last sea train leaves at 11 o'clock. After that, there won't be another until the next morning. You still have time to rescue your nakama." Nami checked her watch. "It's 10:25, she said, alarmed. She jumped to her feet, ignoring Chopper's protests. "We have to find our crew and get to the rail station." Chopper, transforming into his reindeer form, nodded. "Let's go." Paulie, standing nearby, offered, "I'll come with you. The shipwrights will help too." The shipwrights responded with a loud, "Yes, we will help you." Nami nodded in appreciation. "Thank you, everyone." Paulie suggested, "Nami, you should head to the rail station. The shipwrights and I will find the rest of your crew." Nami agreed. "Okay." Paulie mounted a seahorse and, taking Nami with him, sped towards the rail station. Chopper and the shipwrights ran through the alleyways in different directions, shouting the names of their missing crew. "Itachi, Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, where are you?" While running, they all were shouting for more than 5 minutes. As Chopper turned down an alleyway, he saw a wrecked building. From a distance, he heard female voices swooning. "He's so handsome," one of them exclaimed. Curiosity piqued, Chopper approached and saw Itachi sitting on the ground, one hand covering his eye. "Someone is calling me? I need to go," Itachi murmured. A woman gushed, "Ah, his voice is so cool." Another woman said, "Don't worry, I will help you," with a lustful smile. Yet another woman said, "No, I will help him. You are just not suited for him." And the women began to fight. Itachi mused to himself, "I don't have much time." Chopper, Seeing Itachi's condition, mused to himself, if this was Sanji with me, he would be jealous. Chopper, sweating at Itachi's condition, called out, Itachi, are you okay? One of the women noticed Chopper and exclaimed, a pet that can talk. Wow, you are awesome. Itachi sighed heavily. He's not my pet. He's my nakama, and his name is Chopper. He's part of my crew, so don't disrespect him. Chopper beamed with pride. Thank you, Itachi. You're my nakama too. The women, charmed by Itachi's demeanor, continued to swoon with hearts in their eyes. Please marry me, one of them cried. One woman said, so your name is Itachi, my name is… Itachi said very politely, I am sorry, miss, but I don't have much time. Chopper took Itachi's hand, and they started running. Chopper, if I had used my full power, this wouldn't have happened, and Robin would be with us, Itachi said, a note of regret in his voice. Chopper gave him a questioning look. What do you mean? Itachi, while running, explained, these eyes of mine have more power than they appear. But using them too much will make me blind. Chopper's eyes widened. What? You mean that black flame you used on Kaku? Itachi nodded. Yes, but there's more. If I use that power, it could cause more destruction, and I don't want to hurt my crewmates or civilians. But holding back means my crewmates get hurt, he said, frowning. Chopper nodded in understanding and gave him a smile. It's okay, Itachi. I understand, and that shows you care. But I think you should head to the C-Rail station. Robin is being taken to Eni's lobby. Itachi raised an eyebrow. What's that? Chopper explained with a hint of fear, it's the Justice Island, a jail where no one has ever escaped once they pass through the gate of justice. If she gets inside that gate, we can't save her, he said, the last line with a tear in his eye. Itachi understood the gravity of the situation. He created 3 shadow clones. These clones will help you find the others, and this clone will also explain the situation, he said. I'll head to the rail station. You said Nami is also going towards the rail station, right? Chopper nodded, and Itachi said with a firm look, I will leave now and reach there within 10 minutes. With a final nod, Itachi leapt to the rooftops, sprinting towards the station. Don't worry, Robin. We will save you, he vowed. At the rail station, Marines stood guard as Rob Lucci, Khalifa, and Blueno escorted Robin and Frankie, both handcuffed, towards the sea train. Hiding in the shadows of a pillar, Sanji lit a cigarette, watching the scene intently. As the CP9 members and their prisoners boarded the sea train, he saw the Din Din Mushi on the wall, and Sanji's mind raced with plans. He scribbled a message on the wall but was interrupted by a voice behind him. So, you're already here. I must say, you're pretty fast. Sanji turned abruptly to see Itachi standing there, his stoic expression unchanging. Recognizing his ally, Sanji relaxed. It's you. Itachi glanced at the message Sanji had written and raised an eyebrow. Is that your message? Sanji nodded. That's right. The last train leaves at 11. Itachi frowned. We have about 10 minutes. Suddenly, an announcement echoed through the station. Due to high tides, the train will depart now. Itachi and Sanji exchanged a look of urgency and sprinted towards the sea train. As it began to move, they leapt onto the outside, finding a precarious perch. Itachi glanced at Sanji. Despite that message, it was a smart move to alert the others. Sanji, angry expression, said, Is there a problem? Itachi gave him a deadpan look and said nothing. Sanji nodded. Robin-chan, I'll save you. Itachi, with a sweat drop, thought, This guy reminds me of Master Jiraiya. Sanji snapped back to focus. So, what's the plan? Itachi smirked. Just watch. Inside the train, Robin sat quietly, her hands bound in sea-stone cuffs. Frankie, sitting next to her, grumbled. This is not how I imagined our day would go. Robin glanced at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. We will not get out of this. Frankie chuckled sarcastically. I like your optimism, but these cuffs? Robin nodded. Sea-stone. They're designed to nullify our powers. Frankie turned to Robin, his eyes firm with resolve. You should have some faith in your crewmates. They're a bunch of strong people, and your captain, Straw Hat Luffy, won't let go of you that easily. I think they'll follow us to Eni's lobby to protect you. Robin, looking at Frankie, found a small spark of hope growing in her chest. She nodded slowly. They are strong, but… Frankie interrupted. And that new member of your crew, what's his name again? Ah, Itachi Uchiha, Robin answered softly. Yes, Itachi, Frankie said with a nod. He's strong and just as determined to protect you. Robin's small smile faded as she remembered the tragedy of O'Hara. But even if they follow us to Eni's lobby, they'll get captured too. Luffy has a 100 million bounty on his head. If they rescue me, the world government will forever hunt them down. Frankie listened intently and then responded. Do you think they care about that? Robin's eyes widened in surprise. What do you mean? If they were afraid of that, they wouldn't have fought with the CP9 members, Frankie said. When I met your crew, Straw Hat Luffy told me that no matter what happens, he will bring you back because you're his nakama. He will never abandon you. Robin's eyes filled with tears. She sat silently, contemplating Frankie's words. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe that her friends would come for her, that they would not abandon her to her fate. Frankie, growing impatient, began to struggle against his handcuffs. These handcuffs. I'll break them no matter what, he shouted, his frustration echoing in the compartment. His shouts attracted the attention of the CP9 members and a group of Marines. Rob Lucci, accompanied by Califa and Blueno, entered the compartment. Tape his mouth and move him to the second-last compartment, Lucci ordered. The Marines quickly gagged Frankie and dragged him away. Rob Lucci turned to Robin, who was staring out of the window with a sad expression. Even if your friends come to Eni's lobby, they will never escape. If they do come, I will kill every single one of them, especially the red-eyed one, he said, his voice dripping with malice. Robin looked at him, her face pale. Lucci continued with a smirk. He killed one of our members. I will put him to justice, and he will understand what happens when you mess with CP9. Califa and Blueno grinned at his words before leaving the compartment. Robin, left alone, gazed out of the window, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't shake off the overwhelming despair, yet Frankie's words lingered in her mind, offering a sliver of hope. Usopp, still running towards Iceberg's mansion, reached the gate just as the sky darkened with an approaching storm. I have to hurry. Itachi's 3 clones dispersed through the city, each determined to find the missing Straw Hat members. The first clone, running swiftly over the rooftops, spotted a dark green pant leg sticking out from a chimney. Recognizing it as Zoro, the clone approached and called out, Zoro. Zoro's muffled voice responded from inside the chimney, Itachi, is that you? Yes, it's me, the clone confirmed. You're stuck? Yeah, I can't move, and I can't use my swords, Zoro grumbled. Itachi inspected the chimney. Can I borrow one of your swords? Do you know how to use a sword? Zoro asked, his voice filled with hope and a hint of skepticism. I am also a swordsman, Itachi replied confidently. Zoro grinned, though his head was still stuck. Then in the future, we will spar. Just don't cut me, okay? With a reassuring tone, Itachi said, Don't worry. I'm skilled with a sword. He carefully drew one of Zoro's swords, marveling at its craftsmanship. This sword is sharp and beautiful, he mused, infusing it with chakra. With precision, he sliced through the chimney, freeing Zoro. Zoro, now free, stretched and grinned widely. That was awesome. You're definitely my new sparring partner. I didn't know you were a swordsman. And that blue aura, what is that? Yes, that's chakra, but I'll explain it later. But we have more pressing matters now, Itachi said, his tone serious. Zoro nodded. Lead the way. Before they could move, Itachi stopped him. We'll go together. I don't want you getting lost again. Zoro scowled. Hey, shut up. But he followed Itachi as they made their way to the higher ground where Iceberg and other locals were gathered. Iceberg looked at Itachi and Zoro. So, you're here. But the sea train has already left. You're too late. Itachi gave him a reassuring look. Don't worry. My main self and Sanji are on board. We're following her. As he spoke, the clone vanished in a puff of smoke. The locals gasped in surprise. Where did he go? Zoro and Iceberg, unfazed, exchanged glances. I'll never get used to this, Iceberg muttered. The second clone, running alongside Chopper, saw Usopp running through the streets. The clone jumped down, startling Usopp, who screamed, "Huh? Don't just jump in front of me like that. You scared the crap out of me." "Apologies," Itachi said, while Chopper hugged Usopp. "We need to talk." Itachi quickly explained the situation. Usopp's face grew grim. "They've also captured Frankie. He has the Pluton blueprints. And they threw the Mary away." Chopper's eyes widened. "What?" Usopp's voice trembled with guilt and tears. "If I wasn't so weak, this wouldn't have happened." Itachi placed a hand on Usopp's shoulder. "Everyone starts weak. We build ourselves strong. Don't put yourself down. Keep trying, and you will get stronger." Usopp gave him a beaming smile through his tears. "Thank you, Itachi." After a moment, Usopp looked at Itachi apologetically. "I'm sorry for what I said to you in the cabin." Itachi's eyes softened. "No need to worry. I understand how it feels when something precious is at stake. We sometimes have to make tough decisions." Usopp sensed a darkness in Itachi's eyes. "Did something happen to you?" Itachi looked away. "It's nothing. We have more important things to focus on." Understanding the gravity of their mission, Usopp nodded. "Right. Let's go." The clone led Usopp and Chopper to Zoro. As they ran, Chopper glanced at Itachi, sensing a hidden pain. He thought to himself, he has a dark past he's not ready to share. The third clone, leaping across rooftops, saw Nami and Polly riding a seahorse. He noticed the din din mushi in Nami's hand and deduced that she had seen Sanji's message. With a sweat drop, he thought, was that message specifically for Nami? Jumping down onto the path, he stopped Nami and Polly. Polly was the first to speak. "What are you doing here? Aren't you on the train?" Nami explained, "This is Itachi's clone." "Right, Itachi?" The clone nodded. "Yes, I'm here to find Luffy." Nami dismounted the seahorse. "Polly, go on without me. Itachi and I will find our captain." Polly nodded, urging them to hurry. "The tide will come soon." Itachi and Nami jumped onto the rooftops, scanning for any sign of Luffy. As they ran, Itachi said, "I've already found Zoro and Usopp. And you saw Sanji's message, right?" Nami laughed. "Yes, I read it." Flashback. Nami and Polly had been running down the stairs when they saw the sea train already leaving. Nami began to cry. "That was our last chance. What should we do now?" Polly glanced around and noticed something on the wall. "Hold on, there's a message." Nami looked at him, and he pointed to the wall where Sanji had written, "Nami Swan, my darling, how are you?" "I am fine. Did you miss me?" "Me and my lackey Itachi, who is just a junior, are on the train. There's a din din mushi. I'll call you. Nami Swan." Hearts decorated the message. Polly mused, "Is this a message or a love letter?" Nami grabbed the din din mushi and ran outside. "We have to find the other crewmates." Flashback ends. Itachi said, "Seriously, that was more like a love letter than a message." Nami chuckled. "That's Sanji for you. But we need to find Luffy." Itachi glanced at Nami and said, "You all look up to your captain, don't you?" Nami gave him a warm smile. "Every person in our crew is like family. Luffy's affection for us affects everyone. Even with his childish behavior, he gives us a reason to keep moving forward." Itachi looked at her thoughtfully and gave a small smile. "Let's find him." For the next 15 minutes, they both shouted, "Luffy," as they searched the area. Finally, they heard a familiar voice in the distance. "Luffy!" Nami called out again, and this time, they saw him. Luffy was stuck in the middle of two buildings. Nami looked at him and started shouting, "Luffy, you idiot! What are you doing there?" Luffy replied, "When that animal punched me, I got stuck here, and I can't move." Nami looked at Itachi, who gave her a nod. "I'll destroy this building and get you out of here." Luffy smiled broadly. "Thank you, Itachi." Shishishi. Itachi performed a series of hand signs and said, "Katon, fire style, fireball jutsu." A huge ball of fire struck one of the buildings, engulfing it in flames and completely destroying it. After that, Luffy used his devil fruit powers to propel himself to the rooftop. He stretched his arm to the roof where Nami and Itachi were standing, landed beside them, and said, "Thank you, Itachi." Itachi nodded, and Nami quickly explained, "Luffy, CP9 took Robin to Eni's lobby." Luffy's expression turned serious. "We have to go after her." He glanced behind them and saw a massive wave approaching. Wrapping his arms around Nami and Itachi, he swung them to the high area where the local people were gathered. They landed just in time to see the tide break the bridge with incredible force. Itachi watched in awe. "Is this normal?" Iceberg shook his head. "No, it's not. This tide comes every year, but this wave is one of the biggest ever." From behind, another voice chimed in, "He's right. And Granny is right too," another voice said, accompanied by a cat's meow. Nami turned around. "Ah, it's Kokoro and Chimney." Chimney greeted, "Hello, orange-haired lady." And the cat, Gonbi, said, "Meow." Zoro, Usopp, and Chopper arrived as well. Luffy took a look at them. "Ah, everyone is here. Where's Sanji?" Nami explained, and Luffy looked at Itachi.
"But he's here."
Nami clarified, "That's Itachi's clone." Luffy's eyes sparkled. "Wow, that's like a ninja's. Awesome." Itachi, with a sweat drop, said, "Because I am a ninja, or better to say, a shinobi." Luffy said, "I know, that was a good idea to welcome us to our crew." The crew smiled, and Itachi smiled as well, but then the clone vanished in a puff of smoke. Luffy exclaimed, wide-eyed, "Where did he go?" Nami bumped his head. "Didn't I tell you that was his clone?" "Ah, yes, I forgot. Sorry, Shishishi," Luffy said. Luffy then turned to Iceberg with a serious expression. "I need a ship." Iceberg and Polly were wide-eyed. "Are you crazy? Did you see the tides? If you sail now, you'll drown in the ocean. Wait until morning, and we'll all come to help you." Luffy insisted, "We have to go now. After that, we won't be able to help her." This back and forth continued for a while. Kokoro intervened. "I think I can help you." Luffy asked, "Can you really help us, Granny?" Kokoro nodded. "There's one more sea train." Iceberg was wide-eyed. "That's just a prototype. I don't know if it'll start or not." Kokoro said, "You'll help them, right?" Iceberg remained silent for a moment, then said, "Polly, let's go." Polly nodded, and Luffy sat down. "Nami, I'm hungry. I want meat." Nami, anticipating this, said, "I knew you would say that, so I told some shipwrights to find all the meat they could." Luffy started hugging Nami. "Nami, you are the best." Nami, with a small blush, hit him lightly. "No need to thank me now. Let's go." Everyone prepared to board the train. After a short while, Frankie's sister and the rest of the Frankie family approached the Straw Hats. Frankie's sister said, "We will also come with you." Luffy recognized her. "You're Frankie's sister, right?" She nodded. "They also took my brother. We'll help rescue Robin and Frankie." The Frankie family shouted in unison, "Yes, we will help you." The Straw Hats smiled, welcoming them. As everyone got ready to board the train, Luffy stood on the train and shouted, "Let's go." The train began moving at full speed, carrying Nami, Zoro, Usopp, Chopper, Polly, and the Frankie family toward Eni's lobby. Sanji and Itachi were outside the last compartment of the sea train. Sanji asked, "What's the plan?" Itachi smirked and made a hand sign, transforming into a Marine guard. The Marine uniform consisted of a white shirt with blue accents, blue pants, a white cap with the Marine symbol, and a black tie. Sanji's eyes widened, and he smirked. "I'll be damned." Itachi, now in Marine disguise, said, "I'll take you as a prisoner. I'll close the door from the outside, and you will detach each compartment, making it easier for us to avoid unnecessary fights. If something arises, we'll handle it." Sanji nodded. They executed the plan, opening the door to see several Marines in suits sitting inside. One of them asked, "How did you get here?" Sanji nodded. They executed the plan, opening the door to see several Marines in suits sitting inside. One of them asked, "How did you get here?" Itachi played his role. While coming here, this blonde was about to cause a ruckus, so I captured him. But the train was about to move, so I caught it at the last moment. The Marines looked at him suspiciously. One said, "Is that so? We'll need to talk to the other members." Itachi had an idea. "Bring all the members here, along with the leaders." The Marines gave him questioning looks. "Why?" Itachi, in his Marine getup, replied, "Because he is very dangerous. Don't forget he is a member of the Straw Hat Pirates with a bounty of over 100 million berries on his head." After thinking for a while, the Marines called T-Bone through a din mushi. On the other side, T-Bone answered, "Hello, Captain. What is it?" A Marine guard explained, "We caught a member of the Straw Hats named Sanji, and he asked to call you and bring all the members for protection." T-Bone agreed. "All right, all of you, get to the last compartment." The Marine guard with Sanji said, "They are coming." Itachi smirked and said, "Thank you, officer." After some time, T-Bone came through the door, looking at Itachi and Sanji. "You captured him?" Itachi nodded. "Very well, follow me then." Itachi and Sanji followed him. After passing the second compartment, Itachi looked outside and signaled Sanji to detach the last compartment. They entered the second last compartment with Sanji and Itachi, while T-Bone, unaware, continued talking to Itachi. "Bind him here with the other criminals." Itachi saw someone trapped in a sack. T-Bone looked at him, and Itachi used his sharingan to put him to sleep. Sanji took T-Bone and threw him outside the train. Itachi said to Sanji, "He will wake up soon enough." Sanji nodded. Itachi opened the sack to find Frankie inside, his hands tied and mouth taped. He quickly removed the tape from Frankie's mouth. "Ah, I knew you would come," Frankie exclaimed. Itachi gave him a nod and untied his hands. "How long have you been in here?" "About half an hour," Frankie replied loudly. Itachi quickly intervened. "Please keep your voice down." Frankie nodded apologetically. "Sorry." They saw a din mushi and Sanji called Nami. "Nami Swan, did you miss me?" Nami replied, "Sanji, is that you? Are you all okay?" Sanji reassured her, "Don't worry, darling, I'm safe." Itachi, from the back, said, "Keep your voice down." Sanji scowled at him and continued, "We have found Frankie and are heading towards Robin." On the other side, Frankie's family was happy. "Is my brother okay?" Frankie's sister asked worriedly. Sanji said, "He is fine." Then he heard something. "Are you also on the sea train?" Itachi widened his eyes. "Nami, are you on another sea train?" Nami replied, "Yes, we are coming at full speed." Itachi took the din mushi from Sanji's hand. "Nami, this is Itachi. I think on your way, there will be a group of people for your company, so take care of them." "Zoro, there is also a swordsman named T-Bone, known as the Ship Cutter. He will be in your way. Take care of him." Zoro smirked. "No problem." He put down the din mushi. Sanji glared at him. "Don't do that next time. You ruined my time with Nami-chan by adding that Marimo in between." Itachi sighed. "This is not the time. Let's go." Sanji, Frankie, and Itachi moved to the kitchen compartment. There was a person dancing and making food. He looked at them and said, "Who are you people?" They all sweat dropped. Sanji said, "This is the kitchen?" Frankie said to the cook, "Hey, move aside. We have to go." The cook, while dancing around, growled, "Hey, what do you mean, hey? I have a name, you know? My name is Wanza. I'm a member of CP7. He continued dancing and making ramen, noodles coming out from his nose. Itachi looked disgusted. "That's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life." Sanji and Frankie were about to throw up. Sanji said, "That's how you make ramen?" Wanza nonchalantly replied, "Is there a problem?" Itachi said out loud, "Ramen is my least favorite food now." Wanza got angry. "What did you say? Are you insulting me?" Itachi used his sharingan to make Wanza fall asleep. Sanji smirked, putting a hand on Itachi's shoulder. "Good job." Frankie, in awe, said, "That devil fruit is crazy, making people sleep." Itachi corrected him. "It's not my devil fruit. I can put them to sleep, but it's more like an illusion." Frankie didn't understand but shrugged it off. I didn't understand, but it's okay. We'll discuss that later. Itachi nodded. Frankie said, now there are only 3 compartments left. The next compartment has government officers, just normal people. We can take them without any problem. But the main problem is the second compartment. How will we cross it? Itachi thought for a while. Sanji suggested, Itachi, you can walk on walls, right? Itachi nodded. Sanji continued, you go through the roof and get inside the first compartment. Frankie and I will take down the government officers. Itachi nodded and warned, don't underestimate them. There might be someone who can fight. Sanji and Frankie nodded, opening the door. Itachi began to move toward the first compartment, while Sanji and Frankie entered the next one. The people inside were all wearing clothes that marked them as government officers. They saw Sanji and Frankie and got ready with their weapons. One of the officers asked, why are you here? Sanji and Frankie smirked. This won't take long, right? They started fighting, taking them down one by one. In the second compartment, Khalifa asked, what's with that noise? Rob Lucci said, I think those are the straw hats. Blueno stood up. I'll take a look. No, not now. We have a newbie to test, Lucci replied. At the last seat, a person grinned. I won't disappoint you. After fighting, Sanji and Frankie stood victorious. The door opened, and they were on guard. Are you from the Straw Hat crew? A man asked. Sanji nodded. Yes, I am. And who are you? The man revealed his large nails like swords. I am Naily, and I'll cut you into pieces. Sanji and Frankie smirked. As if you could. Meanwhile, Robin, sitting alone and watching outside the window, saw a familiar face. Her eyes widened. Itachi? What is he doing here? Itachi signaled her to open the window. She did, and he slipped inside the train. Robin looked at him. Why are you here? Itachi smiled. To help you, of course. Robin's heart began to beat faster. She composed herself and mused. What is happening to me? I've never felt like this before. She couldn't help but stare at him. Itachi, looking around, said, I thought it would be difficult to enter here, but it was rather easy. Suddenly, the door opened. Relying on his instincts, Itachi stuck to the ceiling. An officer came to check on Robin. Robin maintained her calm composure. Is there a problem? The officer sniffed the air. There is a pirate here. Robin remained calm. I am a pirate as well. He looked at her and said, just know your place. With that, he left the room. Itachi jumped down silently and said to Robin, it's good that you stayed calm. Otherwise, he would have been suspicious. Robin looked down. I am used to this. Since I was a child. Itachi gave her a sympathetic look. Yes, you've gone through a lot. At the age of 8, up until now, you've faced many betrayals. It's hard to trust others, right? Robin looked at him with tears in her eyes. Itachi smiled. But you can trust your crewmates. They will do anything to protect you. Robin immediately asked, even you? Itachi smiled. Of course, I will. I am also part of the crew. Robin began to smile, feeling warmth and her heart beating fast. She used her hand to wipe the tears. Thank you, Itachi Uchiha. Seeing her smile, Itachi felt a connection. Robin asked a question that completely shocked him. Itachi, I can feel you've gone through a lot as well. Itachi gave her a sad smile. Robin regretted asking that question. Sorry for saying that. Itachi replied, it's fine, but I'm not like you. I'm the worst. Robin was shocked. What? Why? Itachi said, this is not the time. We came to rescue you. That's our objective. After that, I'll tell you everything. Suddenly, the door opened, revealing Rob Lucci with a smirk, Blueno with a hint of fear, and Khalifa with anger. They threw Sanji and Frankie into the room. Robin's eyes widened. Itachi looked angry. Rob Lucci spoke. Nice idea, but your friends must have kept it down. Then it would have been difficult. But I must say, I am rather impressed by your skill. I think you should join us. He extended his hand for a handshake. Itachi refused. Sorry, you hurt my nakama. I will not side with you. Rob grinned, avoiding eye contact. Very well then. You must die. As the rocketman sped forward at full speed, Luffy sat on top of the engine, scanning the horizon. He noticed a train compartment ahead filled with people and announced to his crew, "There's a compartment ahead with a lot of people in it." Hearing this, Zoro came out of the rocketman compartment and joined Luffy. Nami, standing behind them, reminded, "Itachi already said there would be some company. Take care." Luffy laughed heartily. Zoro observed the compartment filled with men and mused, "I think he collected all the people in one compartment and detached it." He smirked. "He's really smart." Kokoro warned the passengers, "There will be a bumpy ride. Hold on to your hinges." The people in the detached compartment, wide-eyed, saw another sea train approaching and shouted, "There's another sea train. Jump!" Everyone jumped from the compartment. The rocketman ran through the compartment, breaking it into pieces, and all the people were left in the water. Luffy, looking back, laughed, "Ah, that was awesome." After some time, they saw a figure in the distance. Polly, sitting on the King Bull's Sodom and Gomorrah, recognized him and said with fear, "That's Captain T-Bone, also known as the ship cutter. He's a swordsman." Zoro smirked at the prospect of a worthy opponent. He moved forward while Luffy, understanding the situation, sat down to watch. Zoro, ready with his 3 swords, prepared to engage T-Bone. T-Bone, gaining some composure, stood and saw the train approaching. He was shocked and thought, "How could that be?" Then he saw a person standing with 3 swords. Wielding a large sword named Bamboo, T-Bone prepared his attack. Right angle flying bird. Bone large bird. Zoro countered with his 3-sword style technique, Bull Ogre Brave Claw. In an instant, Bamboo broke into pieces, and T-Bone was knocked out. Zoro, standing on the train, calmly sat down. Polly, shocked by the swift defeat of T-Bone, could only stare in awe. The rocketmen continued to move forward, and they saw another compartment. As they approached, they were shocked by what they saw. Sanji and Frankie stood in a defensive stance as CP9's newbie, Naily, smirked and launched the first attack. Sanji dodged effortlessly, while Frankie aimed a powerful right punch at Naily. However, Naily defended himself with a flurry of nail attacks and laughed mockingly. "Do you honestly think these puny attacks can damage me?" Naily taunted, his confidence in his devil fruit power evident. Sanji leaped into action, delivering a spinning kick aimed at Naily, but once again, Naily deflected it with ease. "This is child's play," Naily sneered. Meanwhile, Frankie activated his general beam, firing an air cannon blast that sent Naily crashing into the adjacent compartment where Rob Lucci, Blueno, and Khalifa were seated. Rob looked at him with a disappointed face, and Khalifa with an angry look and said, "Is this the newbie that was appointed? He's just trash. Can't you even fight? Put your feet firm." Blueno also gave a disappointed look as he rose from his seat, intrigued by the disturbance, while Rob Lucci leaned towards Naily with a mixture of disappointment and amusement. "I expected more from you. Seems you're just another disappointment," Rob remarked coolly, causing Naily's eyes to widen in fear. "I'll do anything, just don't kill me. Give me one more chance, I will finish them, please, sir," Naily pleaded desperately. Rob looked at him silently and said, "Everyone gets a single chance." "But very well, I will give you another chance. More like a task," Rob agreed casually. Naily said desperately, "I will do it, sir." Rob smirked and said, "Since you have devil fruit powers, take a swim." With that, Rob seized Naily and hurled him out of the train and into the ocean below. Sanji and Frankie looked on in shock at Rob's ruthless act. Blueno interjected, explaining, "This is part of justice." Frankie angrily retorted, "Playing with lives is not justice." Sanji scowled, "This is madness." Blueno responded, "Whatever you think, this is justice. What we are doing with Robin is also justice for the people of the world." Sanji, angered by Blueno's words, said, "I've had enough of this," and moved towards him to deliver a swift kick. However, Blueno activated his door fruit powers, creating a door beside Frankie. Sanji had not anticipated it, and Blueno delivered a powerful punch that knocked Frankie unconscious. Blueno, with a serious look, said, "This time, I will not hold back." Sanji retaliated immediately with a devastating kick, but Blueno's defenses proved formidable. Undeterred, Sanji vaulted high into the air, executing rapid flips to build momentum before bringing his heel down on Blueno's head with a shout, "Kankase crush." Blueno staggered from the impact but quickly regained his composure, acknowledging Sanji's strength and wiping the trail of blood from his forehead. "That was impressive," Blueno admitted begrudgingly. "But I will end this here, and what only with this finger." As Sanji prepared to counterattack, Blueno moved with blinding speed, using his finger as a pointed weapon to pierce through Sanji's abdomen. Sanji collapsed, bleeding profusely and losing consciousness. Rob Lucci heard the voice from the first compartment and anticipated who he was dealing with next. He told Khalifa, "He's here, Khalifa." Khalifa, making an angry face, turned to Blueno, who was carrying Sanji and Frankie. Blueno, filled with fear, asked, "Are you serious?" Rob nodded in confirmation. After that, they all entered the compartment. As they stepped inside the cabin, Robin and Itachi Uchiha stood calmly, observing the chaos unfolding. Rob's eyes narrowed slightly as he addressed Robin. "That guy is with you, isn't he?" Itachi looked at Rob Lucci, then glanced around and saw Khalifa standing behind with an angry look. Rob smirked and said, "You came here faster than I anticipated. I have to admit, your plan to lurk behind us and take Frankie and Robin away was spot on. If they had kept it down, it might have been easier for you, right?" He gave a signal to Blueno to come forward. Blueno ushered Sanji and Frankie into the room. Robin's eyes widened in concern, while Itachi's expression darkened with restrained fury. Rob Lucci spoke with a smirk, "Impressive skills. I will make you a deal. You should consider joining us." Khalifa looked at him angrily and said, "What are you thinking? He killed Kaku. I will not allow it." Rob glared at her and said, "Silence, Khalifa." Khalifa, in fear, remained silent. Itachi looked at them and said, "I will never join you. I have a crew, and I belong to them." Robin gave him a smile. Rob sighed heavily and said, "So it's settled then. You must die." He turned into his devil fruit form, the cat fruit, leopard model. Itachi, filled with anger, replied, "Now I will not hold back. I will show you the power of the Uchiha." Itachi's sharingan flared to life with mangyeko sharingan, causing Rob to tense slightly. Rob had heard tales of Itachi's prowess from Blueno, and he particularly feared his black flames. He knew that avoiding eye contact was crucial to surviving Itachi's genjutsu. Khalifa noticed the tension and the power Itachi was holding back. "He's stronger than we anticipated," she muttered, her fear palpable. Rob challenged Itachi, "Show me your full power, Itachi Uchiha." Itachi shouted, "Susanoo." Rob was about to punch him, but his fist stopped mid-air. To his shock, he saw a red-colored ribcage forming around Itachi. He backed up and took a better look, his eyes widening as he saw Itachi, Robin, Sanji, and Frankie inside a half-formed red skeleton. Itachi said, "This is the power of the Uchiha, called Susanoo. It's the ultimate defense and a formidable offense." Robin, who was standing close to Itachi in awe, noticed a trail of blood running down his eyes. She looked at him with concern and said, "Blood is trailing from your eyes." Itachi gave her a reassuring smile and said, "Don't worry. This just happens. This is like armor that will protect you all." Hearing that, Rob ordered everyone to attack with all their strength. Khalifa used her whip, while Rob and Blueno used their devil fruit powers, attacking from all directions. Itachi maneuvered the giant hands of the Susanoo skeleton to counter their assaults, swinging hard. Despite his efforts, the continuous attacks from the three made cracks appear on Susanoo's ribs. Rob noticed this and smirked. "It's about to break," he said, and Khalifa and Blueno smirked as well. Robin looked worriedly at Itachi. Itachi remained firm and asked, "Are you sure?" Rob, Khalifa, and Blueno now saw another form of Susanoo beginning to emerge, radiating an even more formidable power. With a determined expression, Itachi summoned his another Susanoo, a colossal humanoid form wielding a sword and shield. Rob, Khalifa, and Blueno exchanged nervous glances, and Itachi looked at them said this is a last from, and that even harder than the ribcage, as you can see that's an alcual armor around skeleton have sword and a gant shuriken and the shurled. So you still not to fight? Itachi looked at them with serious looks. Robin watched with wide eyes, realizing the depth of Itachi's power. Rob, Khalifa, and Blueno sweated visibly, their legs trembling at the sight of this new power. Rob demanded to know the source of the devil fruit you eat, but Itachi and Robin remained silent, unwilling to reveal the secret of their devil fruit powers. Rob pressed on, attacking Itachi's humanoid form. He struck Susanu's shield, only to have his own attacks reflected back at him. Struggling to maintain his balance, Rob nearly fell out of the train, saved only by his quick reflexes. Itachi smirked and said, "Taste your own medicine." Khalifa, filled with half fear and half anger, launched an attack at Itachi. He used the shield again, reflecting Khalifa's power back at her. She was thrown out of the compartment. Blueno watched in shock as Khalifa was sent flying and looked at Itachi with wide eyes. "Now I'm sure you are a devil with that power," he said. Itachi looked at him and said, "Say whatever you want. I'm here to rescue my crewmates, and I will do it, even if it has to be the hard way." After a moment, Itachi turned his gaze to Robin, who was surprised by his immediate attention. "Show me your handcuffs," he instructed. She did as he told, and he infused chakra into his hands, breaking the handcuffs. Robin looked at the blue aura emanating from Itachi's hands, but did not ask questions, knowing he didn't have any devil fruit power. She kept silent, planning to ask him about it later. Rob approached slowly and said, "I didn't know such a devil fruit really existed." Itachi replied, "It's too bad for you, I guess." Rob Lucci laughed. "You are the first opponent who has stood firm for a very long time." Suddenly, Lucci jumped high and kicked Susanu's head. It stumbled a little, but stood its ground. He then attempted a kick from behind, but Susanu blocked it with the hilt of its sword. Itachi said to him, "That's no use." Rob Lucci looked at Blueno and nodded. They both started attacking Itachi together. After some time, there was a slight jerk, and the train began to slow unexpectedly. Itachi realized their situation had shifted. Rob approached with purpose, taunting, "If you had paid a little more attention to your surroundings, you might have won." Itachi looked at him seriously, and Rob signaled to another person. A government officer emerged, checking on Robin, with a din mushi in his hand. The officer stood with a smirk, observing the scene. Itachi's eyes narrowed as he comprehended the implications. Robin's eyes widened in realization, her mind racing with the significance of their actions. Flashback, 10 minutes before. Rob Lucci was in the second compartment when he noticed a government officer hiding in the corner. The officer, grinning, showed Rob a din mushi and communicated in sign language, indicating he would call Eni's lobby for reinforcements. The officer's message was clear. Reinforcements, including the major with the power of the Buster Call, were on their way. Rob's grin widened as he grasped the plan's full scope and sped forward. The officer made the call. The major, Spandam, answered with a cold, raspy voice. "Hello, Major Spandam speaking." The officer, swallowing nervously, responded, "Sir, there's a problem. The Straw Hat crew is here, and they're engaging CP9. Spandam's voice was indifferent. "So the Straw Hats are going to die." The officer swallowed again. "Sir, quite the opposite. 2 of the CP9 members have died in battle." "What?" Spandam's tone shifted to anger. "That's why I called, sir. We need reinforcements. And you must come with us because you have the power of the Buster Call." Spandam smirked. "You'll get a promotion for this." The officer beamed with a smile. "Thank you, sir. But please hurry. They could escape." Spandam, furious, barked, "I won't let that happen. Ready the fleet. We're going to war." He ended the call. Flashback end. Itachi said with slight shock, "You trapped us here and called the Marines. Is that right?" Rob smirked and nodded. Robin, who was scared, said, "We are at a disadvantage with very limited space. If we fight the fleets here," she looked at Sanji and Frankie, "we are in danger." She then looked at Itachi. Itachi gave her an assuring smile. "Don't worry, Robin. I will protect everyone. And they're not the only ones coming," he said with a smirk. Robin initially gave him a questioning look, but then understood and gained confidence. "So, We have nothing to worry about. Rob narrowed his eyes while Blueno, sitting and sweating profusely, muttered, "The straw hats are coming." Meanwhile, Luffy stood on the rocketman as it sped along. In the distance, he saw a red half-humanoid figure. Luffy launched forward, shouting to the others. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper looked at the red figure. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper poked their heads out of the cabin. Nami shouted, "What is it?" Luffy said, "Look ahead, far away. There's a red half-human with a shield." Nami shouted, "What?" She looked ahead and saw the figure too. "Who is that?" Luffy shook his head. "I don't know, but he looks cool." Zoro, eager for a fight, said, "If it comes to a fight, I'll take him on," with a grin. Luffy beamed with a smile. "Okay, Shishishi." Usopp used his binoculars and gasped, "That's Itachi." Everyone shouted in unison, "What?" Polly and Frankie's sisters looked at the figure and asked, "Is that really Itachi?" Usopp confirmed, "Yes, I see him, and there's Robin with him, as well as Sanji and Frankie." He added grimly, "Sanji and Frankie are unconscious." Upon hearing this, Nami yelled to Kokoro, "Stop the train." "Why?" Kokoro asked. "That's Itachi." Nami shouted. Nami immediately went to Kokoro to stop the train. Zoro, at the engine, saw the shield and sword. His eyes widened as well. Luffy shouted excitedly, "Itachi is so cool. Look how big he is." Chopper added, "So this is the power he mentioned?" Everyone looked at Chopper. Nami asked, "What do you mean?" Chopper explained, "Remember how he fought in the Iceberg mansion?" Everyone nodded. "He said there's another power, very destructive. He didn't use it to avoid putting the crew and local people in danger." Everyone smiled, touched by Itachi's concern. Nami said, "He is very kind-hearted." Zoro also smiled and added, "He truly is." Usopp said, "Yes, he is. He gave me some motivation even after I spoke harshly to him the second day. He still forgave me." As the train slowed down, Luffy declared, "Itachi is so cool." Chopper warned with a grim face, "But using this power continuously will make him blind." Everyone's eyes widened. Nami asked, "Then why is he using it?" Zoro chimed in, "Because he doesn't have any other option now. If he didn't use it, he might have lost the fight." And as Usopp said, Robin, Sanji, and Frankie are inside the red human figure. Usopp nodded in confirmation. That armor is protecting them from physical damage. Concern for Itachi filled their hearts. Luffy reassured them, "We'll help him," and Chopper, "You're a doctor. You can help too." Chopper nodded. Luffy cracked his knuckles with a serious look and said, "Let's go and beat their asses." Itachi had been using his Susanoo for the last 20 minutes, straining his eyes. Robin clung to him, concern evident. "What's happening?" she whispered. "I think I'm at my limit," Itachi replied. Robin, holding on to Itachi, watched as Rob continued his relentless attacks. Itachi blocked with Susanoo's shield, but he was exhausted, and his Susanoo was depleting. Robin crossed her arms, ready to use her devil fruit powers. They heard the train approaching and felt a surge of relief. Rob, noticing Itachi's struggle, smirked, "So you are finally at your limit. As I can see, your power resides in your eyes. How about I take them?" He advanced with a menacing grin. Robin stepped in front of Itachi, ready to defend him. "I won't let you." Itachi placed a hand on her shoulder, calming her. "You're not the only one who has sought my eyes," he said. "These eyes, whatever fruit I eat, give me power." Itachi lied, hoping to mislead Rob. As they stood their ground, they heard the noise of the sea train growing louder. Itachi and Robin sighed in relief. "They're here," Itachi said with a small smile. Then they heard, "Itachi, Robin, Sanji, Frankie, we're here." When they heard Luffy's voice, relief washed over them. Rob Lucci looked at them and sneered. "So, you think you're ahead of the game, huh? Do you think I'm scared?" Robin glanced at Itachi's smirk as his Susanoo completely faded. "A person who can't look into another's eyes says a lot," Itachi remarked. Rob remained composed. "But I'm still standing, am I not?" And I'm keeping up, aren't I? Itachi shook his head. I haven't even used my hand-to-hand combat skills yet. Rob got ready. So, do you want to fight? Itachi shook his head again. I'm not the one meant to take you down. That's our captain's job. In the distance, the sea train approached with Luffy, Zoro, Chopper, Usopp, Nami, Polly, and Frankie's sisters on board. As the train drew closer, they could see Itachi and the others. Chopper, seeing Sanji and Frankie, shouted, "Sanji, Frankie!" They all jumped down into the compartment, running towards their fallen comrades. Polly and Frankie's sisters rushed to their brother, shouting, "Brother, are you okay?" Chopper transformed into his beast form, ready to help. He looked at Itachi with concern. "Itachi, are you all right?" Itachi, his voice strained but firm, replied, "Don't worry about me. Sanji is in worse condition. He must be treated first." Chopper nodded, understanding the urgency. "Got it." He quickly moved Sanji to the engine of the rocketman, where he could begin treating his injuries. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp stood by Itachi, ready to support him. Luffy grinned. "Itachi, we've got your back." Zoro added, "Just tell us what you need." Nami and Usopp, determined, stood ready for any command. Rob Lucci, seeing the reinforcements, growled, "So, the Straw Hats have arrived." Itachi, though exhausted, felt a surge of strength from his friend's presence. "Let's finish this," he said, his sharingan glowing with renewed resolve. Robin looked at the group, relief washing over her. "Thank you all for coming." Luffy cracked his knuckles, his face serious. "No one messes with our crew and gets away with it." Zoro drew his swords, eyes fixed on Rob. "Let's end this." Nami and Usopp prepared themselves, ready to fight. Polly and Frankie's sisters stayed close to their brother, ensuring his safety. The final battle was set. The Straw Hat Pirates, alongside Itachi and Robin, faced off against Rob Lucci and his allies, determined to protect their friends and bring the fight to a victorious end. But then they heard a loud horn. 5 marine fleets were approaching. Rob smirked. "You're not the only ones with backup." Everyone looked at the fleet coming toward them, eyes wide with shock. Even Robin's face showed signs of fear. Itachi, sensing her anxiety, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry," Itachi said calmly, his eyes locked onto the approaching ships. "Our crew is here." Robin took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "Yes, you're right. We're all together," Chopper said while examining them. "Sanji has lost a lot of blood, and Frankie is just knocked out." He applied some medical solution to Sanji. Luffy stepped forward, facing Rob Lucci. "I'll beat you because I will become the king of the pirates." Rob, though a bit exhausted, smirked back. "I can fight you without any problem." Zoro readied his hand on his hilt while Blueno, looking terrified, mused, "I'd rather fight anyone but that demon," glancing at Itachi. Luffy turned to Itachi. "Go rest, Itachi. We'll handle this." Itachi said, "Okay, you fight him. I will take on Blueno with Zoro." Zoro shook his head and said, "No need. You need some rest." He unsheathed his 3 swords and smirked. "Blueno is my opponent." Itachi was about to argue, but Luffy gave him a beaming smile. "You're looking at the future Pirate King. Don't worry about it. You did a great job. Now you need to rest." As Itachi and Robin began to walk outside the cabin, Rob Lucci tried to attack them. "You think I'll let you go that easily?" Itachi was about to activate his eyes, but Luffy intercepted Rob with a powerful punch, smashing him into the wooden wall. Itachi looked at Luffy with wide eyes, wondering how he had turned red and was steaming. Luffy stood between Rob and Itachi, his skin glowing and steam rising from his body. "Gear second," Luffy said with a grin. "Leave him to me, Itachi." Itachi nodded, feeling a wave of relief. "Thank you, Luffy." Luffy glanced back at him. "You've done enough. Now let us handle the rest." Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, and the others took their positions, ready to fight off the remaining enemies. Robin placed a gentle hand on Itachi's arm. "Let's get you somewhere safe." "You've done more than enough." Itachi nodded, allowing Robin to guide him to a safer area. As they moved away, the sounds of battle filled the air, but Itachi felt a sense of peace knowing his friends were there to protect him. Luffy declared, "He's part of my crew. First, go through me." Itachi felt a deep sense of acceptance and pride. Robin smiled warmly at him. "You feel accepted, don't you?" Itachi, shocked, asked, "How do you know?" Robin's smile widened. "Your face says it all." Touched, Itachi replied, "People say I'm stoic, and most can't recognize my emotions." Robin's smile grew. "But I sense it." Itachi hid his face, feeling his heart race and a slight blush creeping in. He quickly recovered. "I need some rest, then I'll fight again." "I'll observe them for now." Robin nodded. "Good. Take care of yourself, Itachi. Nami, Usopp, and I will handle the Marines." Nami nodded, determined. "Yes, I'll help you." Usopp stepped forward, his legs shaking but his voice filled with bravado. "You rest, Itachi. I, the Sniper King, will blow all the ships out of the water with a single shot." Itachi gave a sweat drop and asked, "Are you sure about that, Usopp?" Usopp's face turned red with anger. "What do you mean? You might not know this, but I've taken down 8,000 enemies all by myself." Itachi stood there with a deadpan expression, then turned to Robin. "Take care of yourself." Robin gave him a reassuring smile and nodded. "I will. Don't worry." Nami and Usopp looked at each other and gave a smirk. Nami teased, "Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and I will also fight. Wish us luck." Itachi, not catching the teasing tone, earnestly told Nami and Usopp, "Be safe." He then shouted to Luffy and Zoro, "Give me some time and be safe. Don't get yourselves killed." Zoro, with his 3 swords ready, replied, "Sure thing." Luffy grinned, "Sure thing." Nami and Usopp, with a sweat drop, face-palmed. "He didn't get it," Nami muttered. Concerned, she asked Itachi, "Are you all right? Is your eye okay?" Itachi nodded, though he looked weary. "I'll be fine. Just need some rest." "My eye. It's nothing I can't handle." Nami frowned, still worried. "You sure? You used a lot of power back there." Usopp added, trying to lighten the mood. "Yeah, and I need you to be around to see me take down those 8,000 enemies." Itachi gave a small smile. "I trust you all. Just be careful." As the 5 fleets neared, a voice echoed, "Hello, everyone. I am Major Spandam. This is your last warning, you damn pirates. Surrender now, or I will use this." He revealed a golden den mushi. Robin's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're joking, right? You know what will happen if you use that button. Everyone here will die, including you. They won't spare your fleet either." A buster call means only one thing: destruction. Spandam smirked maliciously. "Let's test it." He pressed the button. "They'll be here in 15 minutes. Robin, shocked and overwhelmed, fell to her knees. Nami rushed to her side, offering support. "We'll get through this. Don't worry, Robin." Itachi's gaze turned piercing as he stared at Spandam, causing the man to shiver involuntarily. "What are you looking at?" "Ah, you're all going to die," Spandam taunted. Itachi finally stood up, his demeanor serious and determined. Chopper hurried over to him, running alongside. "I want to check your eye, but now is not the time," Chopper said urgently. Itachi nodded in understanding, focusing on the impending threat of the buster call and the need to protect everyone from the looming danger. Rob Lucci was fighting Luffy, and Zoro was battling Blue Eno. Nami and Robin fought the Marine Guards. Itachi observed everyone with his sharingan, assessing their condition and readiness for battle. Sanji, despite his injuries, insisted on joining the fight. "I need to fight," Sanji insisted, his voice strained but determined. Itachi shook his head firmly. "Not now. Rest for a while," he urged, concerned about Sanji's injuries. Sanji struggled to stand, his resolve unwavering. "I can't let Nami Swan and Robin-chan fight alone," he argued, his gaze challenging Itachi. Chopper intervened, emphasizing the seriousness of Sanji's wounds. "No, Sanji. I've just closed your wounds. If you fight now, they might reopen," he warned. Sanji's determination didn't waver. "I don't care. I will fight. I need to rescue Robin-chan," he declared, glaring defiantly at Itachi. Ignoring Sanji's glare, Itachi asked him seriously, "Are you sure?" Sanji grinned, showing his resolve as he pulled out a lighter and lit a cigarette. "I'm ready," he affirmed, ready to support his crewmates despite the odds. Itachi, Sanji, and Chopper joined the fray. Nami utilized her climate act to summon thunder and lightning, while Robin employed her flower fruit to incapacitate Marines from a distance. Itachi, opting for hand-to-hand combat supplemented by swordplay with a nearby weapon, and Sanji, using his powerful leg techniques to repel Marines with swift kicks, fought alongside their crewmates with synchronized precision. Luffy and Rob Lucci engaged in a fierce battle, their movements blurring as they exchanged rapid-fire punches. Luffy's Gum Gum Bazooka aimed true, but Rob dodged with agility, countering Luffy's attacks with his own swift maneuvers. Seeing the deadlock, Luffy grinned knowingly. "You leave me no choice." "Gear third," Luffy exclaimed, inflating his arm to an enormous size with his trademark technique. His colossal fist surged forward at blinding speed, crashing into Rob and propelling him through the air. The impact sent Rob hurtling into 3 Marine ships, each one sinking rapidly under the force of Luffy's blow. Meanwhile, Zoro and Blueno's duel reached a crescendo of intensity. Zoro's mastery of the three-sword style allowed him to deliver precise cuts, each strike aimed to incapacitate Blueno. However, Blueno's door fruit granted him the ability to attack from unexpected angles, exploiting blind spots in Zoro's defense. Despite Zoro's skill, one of Blueno's strikes caught him off guard, knocking him into the ocean. Undeterred, Zoro swiftly resurfaced, his determination unwavering. Sensing Itachi's watchful gaze, Zoro unleashed his Bull Ogre Brave Claw technique with unwavering resolve. A torrent of blood accompanied the strike as Zoro's attack landed true, knocking Blueno unconscious with a single devastating blow. Rob Lucci, seeing Blueno fall, got angry. "Why is everyone falling?" Luffy, using Gear second, said, "You will fall too." From the far end, everyone observed the massive fleet, twice the size of the previous ships, emerging from Eni's lobby. An announcement rang out, chilling the air. "This is a buster call. Capture Nico Robin and destroy everything and everyone." Shock and fear spread among those present, their eyes widening as they realized the gravity of the situation. Spandam's laughter echoed like that of a madman. A cannonball aimed at the ship where Nami and Robin were fighting made Itachi's eyes widen. He swiftly summoned his Susanoo-OS shield, empowered by the Uchiha reflection technique. With precise control, he redirected the cannonball back towards its origin, obliterating the attacking ship in a blaze of destruction. Marines and Major Spandam stared in utter disbelief, their faces frozen in shock at Itachi's formidable power and skill. Spandam demanded, "Who are you?" Itachi replied, "I am Itachi Uchiha." In the midst of escalating chaos, the previously hidden officer behind Spandam revealed himself as the culprit behind the deaths of 2 CP9 members. Spandam's shock was palpable, but amid the turmoil, Rob Lucci took swift action, leaping into the wooden compartment where Frankie was slowly regaining consciousness. Polly, engaged in a fierce battle with the Marines, greeted Frankie with a mix of relief and urgency. "Frankie, you're awake." Frankie, still reeling from his ordeal, scanned their dire surroundings. "Wait, we're not in Eni's lobby, are we?" Polly shook his head solemnly. "Nope, it's all because of that Itachi Uchiha. But now there's a bigger problem. Major Spandam just called for a buster call." Frankie's eyes blazed with anger as he locked gazes with Spandam. "Spandam, you!" He didn't finish his sentence, instead lunging at Spandam with fierce determination, landing blows that quickly turned the man's face bloody. As Major Spandam initiated the buster call, chaos erupted around them. Cannonballs hailed down upon the Straw Hat Pirates and Itachi, aiming to annihilate them. With swift and precise movements, Itachi wielded his sword, deflecting cannonballs and slashing through nearby Marine ships. The Marines who remained on those ships trembled in fear, their weapons useless against Itachi's prowess. Some Marines attempted to flee by jumping into the ocean, desperate to escape the impending doom. Among them was the government officer, terrified and attempting to make a run for it. However, Zoro intercepted him with deadly efficiency. With a swift motion of his sword, Zoro cut down the officer, ending his escape attempt abruptly. Zoro then turned his attention back to his crewmates, swiftly moving to join them in their fight against the overwhelming odds of the Buster Call. Itachi, his Susanoo shield shimmering with ethereal power, deflected the incoming onslaught with precision, sinking multiple marine fleets in retaliation. Robin watched in awe at Itachi's incredible abilities. He's extraordinary in that form. His power is beyond belief. Nami nodded in agreement, her expression a mix of admiration and concern. Yes, he's incredibly powerful. Sanji, overhearing their conversation, couldn't hide his jealousy. He scoffed and looked away, masking his concern for Itachi behind a facade of indifference. Nami continued, her voice tinged with worry. But if he keeps using that form, he'll go blind. Both Robin and Sanji were stunned by the revelation. What? Robin turned her attention to Itachi, her concern evident in her voice. You don't have to push yourself like this, Itachi. Itachi turned to her with a serene smile. I can handle it. Robin persisted, her worry deepening. But what if you lose your sight? Itachi's response was calm and resolute. If that happens, I'll adapt. Another cannonball approached, targeting the captain directly. Itachi reacted swiftly, reflecting it back with his Susanoo, and get hit by the reflection back at them and prompting a broad smile from Luffy. Thanks, Itachi. It's nothing, Itachi replied softly, though the strain in his eyes was becoming more apparent. Throughout the intense battle, Itachi observed with admiration the sheer power displayed by Luffy and Zoro. He noted Zoro's incredible physical prowess with his three-sword style and Sanji's devastating kicks. Sanji's speed and strength were impressive, appearing as a blur even to Itachi's enhanced perception. As the battle reached its climax, Itachi found himself facing over 10 approaching enemy ships. With a decisive resolve, he made a bold move, leaping onto the water's surface. The onlookers, already astonished by the sight of his Susanoo and his abilities, were further stunned to witness him standing effortlessly on the sea. Taking a moment to gather himself, Itachi prepared his final attack. Retrieving a large red shuriken from his Susanoo, he hurled it towards the fleet with precision and power. Despite the fleet's attempts to defend against the incoming projectile, the shuriken sliced through all the ships in its path, leaving destruction in its wake. Exhausted from exerting his powers to their limits, Itachi returned to the rocketman and sat down. As the chaos settled around them, Robin approached Itachi with a mix of concern and admiration in her eyes. Are you all right, Itachi? She asked softly, her voice betraying her worry. Itachi nodded slightly, his expression calm despite the fatigue weighing on him. I'm fine, Robin. Just need some rest, he replied, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. Nami chimed in, her tone a mixture of relief and awe. That was incredible, Itachi. I've never seen anything like it, she exclaimed, her eyes darting between Itachi and the remnants of the destroyed fleet. Itachi managed a faint smile at her words. Thank you, Nami. I did what needed to be done, he said humbly, acknowledging the gravity of the situation they had faced. Chopper's diagnosis weighed heavily on everyone present. He looked at Itachi with a mix of concern and professional detachment. Itachi-san, your eyes have been strained severely. The sharingan has taken a toll. Right now, you're only able to see at about 50% capacity, he explained, his tone somber. Nami gasped, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Half blind, she repeated, her eyes widening with realization of the sacrifice Itachi had made during their battle. Robin's expression softened with empathy, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at Itachi. Itachi, I'm sorry. This happened because of me, she murmured, guilt tinging her voice. Itachi shook his head gently, his smile reassuring despite the gravity of the situation. Robin, it's not your fault. I knew the risks when I used my abilities. I made that choice, he reassured her, his voice calm and composed. Sanji, who had been listening quietly, spoke up with a touch of admiration. Damn, Itachi, you really went all out for us, he remarked, a mixture of respect and concern in his tone. Zoro, usually stoic, nodded in agreement. Heh, typical. Always putting others before yourself, he commented, his voice gruff but appreciative. The sounds of their intense fight echoed across the deck of the Rocketman, punctuated by the occasional clash of fists and bodies. Sanji, leaning against the railing with a cigarette in hand, observed the battle with a mix of concern and confidence. Luffy's got this, he remarked, his voice carrying a tone of unwavering faith in their captain. Zoro adjusted his bandana, his expression serious as he continued to watch Luffy and Rob exchange blows. Yeah, Luffy always finds a way, he agreed, his voice low but resolute. Itachi glanced back at his crewmates, a small smile playing on his lips. You're right. Luffy will see this through, he affirmed, his confidence in their captain evident. Let's trust in him to finish this fight. Robin, standing beside Itachi, placed a reassuring hand on his arm. He's strong, Itachi. Luffy will find a way, she said softly, her eyes reflecting a blend of concern and admiration for their captain's determination. Nami, her gaze fixed on the battle ahead, added with a hint of worry, he better not push himself too hard. We've all got to make it through this. Itachi nodded in agreement, his focus returning to the battle. We'll support him however we can, he declared, his voice carrying a note of determination. Let's be ready for whatever comes next. The battle between Luffy and Rob Lucci intensified once more, with Luffy activating his gear second, increasing the blood flow in his body to boost his speed and power. Itachi observed silently, noting the strategic use of Luffy's abilities in combat. After an arduous struggle, Rob Lucci dealt a final decisive blow to Luffy, knocking him unconscious. Exhausted, Luffy about to collapse, but Usopp's encouraging words spurred him on. Luffy, you're going to be the king of the pirates. You can't lose. As Luffy launched his gum-gum pistol attacks with renewed vigor, each blow landing with precision, Rob Lucci struggled to keep up. The relentless assault pushed Rob Lucci to his limits until finally, with a powerful final strike, Luffy knocked him down, defeating his formidable adversary. With Rob Lucci defeated and victory secured, Luffy called out to Robin, his voice filled with determination and relief. Robin, come with us. His words carried a sense of urgency and reassurance, signaling the next step in their journey together. Itachi nodded in approval, recognizing Luffy's strength and resolve as their captain. Well done, Luffy, he muttered quietly to himself, a faint smile playing on his lips. He turned to Sanji and Zoro, his eyes reflecting a mixture of satisfaction and readiness. Let's regroup and move forward, he said, his voice calm yet determined. All the crewmates smiled warmly at Luffy and Itachi, who couldn't help but feel a pang of happiness reminiscent of his younger brother Sasuke's smile. Itachi's expression softened as he recalled the rare moments of joy they had shared in their tumultuous past. Amidst the camaraderie, Usopp heard something faint in the distance. Guys, look, it's Mary. She's coming this way, Usopp exclaimed, tears welling up in his eyes. She came to take us all. The crew turned their attention to the approaching ship, Mary, which was now within sight. Itachi remained observant, his Sharingan eyes scanning the vessel with a hint of concern. Luffy, ever impulsive, stretched out his rubber-like arms and swiftly gathered everyone with a single leap onto Mary's deck. There were cries of surprise and a thud as they landed, causing Nami to deliver a swift punch to Luffy's head. Idiot! Warn us before you do that. Nami scolded, her brow furrowed in irritation. Luffy scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry, Nami. Shishishi. Itachi, still looking around with a contemplative gaze, was asked by Robin if something was troubling him. He shook his head slightly. The ship seems to be in bad condition. How did it get here? Itachi wondered aloud. Luffy, not bothered by such details, grinned broadly. Who cares? Let's get going. Take us to Water 7, Mary. With that, the crew set sail once more, their spirits high despite the recent battles. As Mary navigated the seas towards Water 7, everyone aboard felt a sense of relief and anticipation for what lay ahead. They knew that their journey was far from over, but together, They were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the bustling city of shipwrights and adventure.